With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
It's time to go racing once more for Tuesday night GT3s, and the show gets started here live on RaceSpotTV on the best coast of the USA, live from the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca with the Precision Racing League GT3 Fixed Series. Hello everyone and welcome back. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, delighted to be here for what's bound to be a difficult day of racing, if not necessarily the most entertaining. Alongside will be Joey Tebben, and Joey, we've had some fun with this GT3 Fixed Series so far, but as we get set to go racing here today, I think it's fair to say we don't know what we're really in for.
It's impossible to predict in the GT3 Fixed Series this season. There's been 3 different winners in 3 races, and none of those 3 are in the lead of the championship, so it's been impossible to predict what's going to happen. There's even more being shook up here in the practice timesheets, so personally, I don't know what to predict, and I am very much looking forward to the race at Arjuna Seca, Laguna.
Yes, I did see your little Twitter pun. It got me very excited for the punniness that I knew was going to come and show its head once more on a Tuesday night. Here's a look at that GT3 Fixed and Sprint Combined series as we follow, of course, the official iRacing schedule. After this, we head over for a bit of a European swing. Snetterton over then to the sunny Spanish coast. Oschersleben, one of the new tracks, as well as Roscogan to round things off. And of course, it's been a track that we've talked about many a time already, how it's going to play out when we come to the very end of this championship. But let's talk about the driver standings very quickly. Shaken up very slightly after the chaos at the end of the last race at the Twin Ring Motegi track. It's Rasmussen that leads in the BMW, the Audi behind, and it's Carl Streikart that has quietly climbed to 3rd spot.
It's pretty incredible to see Andrew Rasmussen in the championship lead because he's been the most consistent out of anybody, I guess, but he's kind of done it under the radar. He could have won at Road America in week 1, threw it off the road at the final corner, ended up finishing 3rd. Was kind of completely out of the conversation in the last 2 weeks at Motegi and Road Atlanta, but he's done what is most important. He's picked up points. He's been consistent. While Floyd Kerr, for example, had a mechanical failure of sorts with his VR failing at Motegi. Michael Terrafino got taken out by a car backing across the S's at Road Atlanta last week, and last week's winner Andres Espinoza isn't even on our list in the top 10. So it has just been a crazy way to start the season, and consistency is really rewarded Andrew.
It very much has been a crazy season. Let's talk quickly then about the team championship before we talk more about this track, the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. It's close in this team championship, just 12 points splitting the top 2, only then 2 points further back where we've got a tie for 3rd. And really, the reality is, Joey, it can go any way, and we have no idea how it's going to shake up until we'll get to that final round of the championship.
The team's championships are always interesting, and they're especially interesting in a series that's so evenly matched as this one. Because while the driver's standings are close, you saw how close they are with how crazy everything's been. The teams championships are almost just as close here. The Keeping It Real esports squad are on the top. They've got a little bit of an advantage over SRT esports, but who are the Keeping It Real esports drivers? Brandon Six and Nick Silver, two drivers who haven't won races, haven't been on the podium necessarily either, but they've been consistent. They've picked up those points. They're actually going to get a 20-point penalty. Brandon Six's at least, because he's switched from the Mercedes to the Porsche, and if you switch cars mid-season, you get a 20-point penalty. So Brandon Six is elected to take that penalty, and that might put Keeping It Real esports technically in second, but we'll have to wait for that to shake out after tonight's race.
We'll let the powers that be sort that out. We're not going to deal with the technicalities of the points. Let's talk more about this track, of course. You don't get the sense of elevation looking at this flat track, but of course known mostly from video game lore, the first real track to be added to Gran Turismo 2 all the way back in 1999, and it was the corkscrew and the 80 feet of elevation drop that caught all the attention. But really, it's not the most tricky corner on the track. You've got the technical turn 6 that is so important, not just to build momentum, but to avoid crashing out by running into the anti-cut curve.
There's just so many places on this track that are just waiting for you to make a little mistake, and they're ready to punish you very, very heavily for that mistake. On the exit of turn 5, or on the exit of turn 4, rather, that'll spit you into a concrete wall on the inside. Turn 6 up the hill as well. The corkscrew, always a difficult spot. Not as difficult, like you said, though, as some of the other more, uneffacing places on the track, but there's some tricky spots here, and they are waiting to punish mistakes just like at Road Atlanta last week, and they will bite very, very hard.
We've got our first times coming in this qualifying session as drivers begin the go fast period. Just 7 minutes left, but of course this is going to be a crucial time for those times to get left up on the board. We'll talk more about qualifying in a few moments' time as it rolls on. Let's take the time to thank those that make this coverage possible, starting with VCO, the virtual competition organization. Whether it be blurring the lines between the virtual or the reality with the VCO Pro Sim series, or pushing esports racing forward with the VCO Esports Racing League, VCO has you covered for your sim racing needs and is delighted to partner up with the VCO community. Stay connected on the VCO social media and follow VCO on Twitch for all your esports needs. Owned and operated by passionate sim racingers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminium profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount code on ASR products using Precision 5. Racebox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, our button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit raceboxsimracing.com and get a 5% discount using the Precision 5 coupon code. RaceLab helps you to improve your driving skills. With modern overlays, race statistics, and native VR integration, you can get the best out of iRacing. Start using it now for free at racelab.app. The Butt Kicker products add incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the drive. Ready to compete against the financial market, supporting over 60,000 users across the globe, NinjaTrader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. NinjaTrader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit ninjatrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance. Qualifying here can be oh so treacherous because, Joey, it's an old school track with very little to separate the track and the gravel on the outside.
Very, very little, probably zero in most places, except for the final corner. It's difficult to tell sometimes at Laguna Seca. Is it sand? Is it dirt? Is it dried out grass? What really is it? You don't know, but you do know that it is very, very slippery, and when you run one half of your car over it, the difference in friction, the difference in coefficients of friction will end up spitting you into the walls, and there's a lot of concrete walls that are very, very close to the track at Laguna Seca that, like I said, are waiting to punish all but the smallest mistake. Luckily, it's qualifying. You can get away with mistakes. You can refresh if you do spit it into the wall. Looks like Michael Terrafino's back to his old tricks. He won at Motegi a couple weeks ago when Floyd Kerr got eliminated from the race, and he's back on top, at least right now, in qualifying.
Yeah, it's quite close at the front, of course, and so we are looking forward to this qualifying session. Margin quite big, though, between the top 16 with 1 full second, and of course, this is the GT3 fixed setup. It's in the name. It's a fixed setup competition, so it's impressive to see that while, yes, there's 700s between Terrafino and Espinosa, it's then 3,000s behind to Benatti and then 3,000s to Brown. Close margins between many, many drivers, and as always in these sort of competitions, Joey, you'll find your own battle packs, and we expect plenty of lap traffic to play its part through the course of these races.
It's a short lap at Laguna Seca. You can see Terrafino on pole with a 1:19.9. That's around what we were running at Road Atlanta last week, and you saw how quickly we ran into lap traffic at Road Atlanta last week. With so many cars in this field, it looks like about 45 were on the entry list when practice came to a close, so you're going to reach lap traffic. It's basically guaranteed. And you're just going to have to hope that you can navigate through them, hope that they get out of the way. Lap cars are 99% of the time very courteous, very kind here in the Precision Racing League, but there's always that 1% chance that something goes horribly wrong. And you've just got to be aware and ahead of yourself to make sure that doesn't rob you of the win.
So you saw that Brandon 6 set up out of the final corner, compromised that previous lap to try and go for this final flying attempt as he'll start lap number 4. Benatti and Brown have already burned all 4 of their qualifying attempts, so they're done in qualifying and watching on from the sidelines. Kalaga jumps up into the top 8. Corolla goes one better. He goes up into 7th. This is when the pressure comes and the fastest rise to the top. Espinosa trending well as he works his way in towards the corkscrew.
Last week's winner, Espinosa, Road Atlanta and Laguna Seca, not the most similar tracks necessarily, but they're also not the most dissimilar either. Lots of high-speed, high-commitment corners here, as there were at Road Atlanta, and Andres Espinosa and that Ferrari been on a little bit of a hot streak lately. This looks like a decent lap. Through the final corner, doing a good job to set it all the way to the right, maximize the exit through the tight final corner. It's almost impossible to nail. Seems like you're always either getting on the throttle too early or too late. He's going to cross the line and improve just a little bit by about 9 thousandths of a second, but unfortunately he needs about 63 more thousandths to catch up to Michael Terrafino, and Andre Benatti is right behind him. So if Andre Benatti's still on track, if he can just find 3 thousandths of a second through dumb luck potentially, he's got a chance.
It's close at the front, but then it starts to balloon. It's a quarter of a second back from 9th to 10th, so I think we are going to see a bit of a stretch out at the front with those top 9. And let's not forget, Joey, we have a pit stop that always plays its factor, and at a track like this where you can fuel save and pit lane can be treacherous, trying the overcut might very well be what you want to do.
And that's what I imagine everybody's going to do. As is typical in the Precision Racing League, we usually like to, or drivers usually like to go as long as humanly possible, especially if they are in the lead pack, just to stay out of that traffic. Just keep running and running and running until the fuel tank literally runs out. Then you finally bring it down pit road. But it is always a difficult decision, especially when lap traffic comes into consideration, like it very well could tonight. So you might be in traffic either way, no matter what you do.
So no improvement at the death, so at least indicated to me that we are going to see tire wear play its factor. We haven't talked too much about conditions. It's cold because it's cool in October here at Laguna Seca, and as always in the virtual iRacing world, it is dry as well. But cool conditions does tend to usually mean, Joey, tires should hold on.
They should hold on. It's basically a driver's dream here. Laguna Seca means dry lake, so understandably it's going to be dry, but we might have to call it Laguna Frio here because it is very, very, very cold, and drivers are going to be very, very happy about that. You don't want to bake the tires at Laguna Seca. If you can keep them as cool as possible, you're in good shape. So the weather's really helping us today.
Well, we are ready to go racing, and it's already been electric this season in this GT3 Fix Series as we get set to go on the best coast of the USA. What does the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca have in store for the drivers of the Precision Racing League GT3 Fix Series? Not for the first time, we see Michael Terrafino and the Team Beef BMW at the front of the field, but it's last week's race winner Andres Espinosa that's looking to pile on the pressure from the outside of row number 2. It's We Race's Esports Porsche that lines up inside of Gary Brown and the Vulture Motorsports North. Number 49, Daniel Knight and the best of our Lamborghinis lines up inside of the Audi of Floyd Kerr, who completes the top 6. Then Carl Streikart, who has found his way forward in the Drivers' Championship, lines up inside of Jeff Corolla with Brandon 6 and Eric Kulaga, bringing up the rest of the top 10. Chris Colantonio and Andrew Rasmussen, 11th and 12th, of the points leader finding some work to do from the outside of row 6. Roy Brown and Greg Doucette in plaid, 13th and 14th, with Sully Saad and Matt Scherf rounding out row 8. Dale Peterson and Bob Combe find themselves alongside one another behind them. Nick Silver and Steven Martinez will bookend the top 20, while continuing the pink in October. Alex Wright in the Lunatic Racing number 33 Lamborghini sees Dave Peterson alongside in the fire-breathing McLaren. The Clow Valve Racing North 22 is in 23rd, with We Race Esports' Ferrari, this time the number 19, back in 24th position. Glenn Vanko and Nicholas Carangis 25th and 26th. On the inside of row 14 is the Ferrari of Michael Kulaga, with the Porsche of Baron Glover for company. Sean Duhamel, Rodrigo Morales will complete the top 30. As always, it's a huge stacked field in the Precision Racing League, so we will scroll on through the rest of the names. But one of the surprises here, Joe, is we look through another electric qualifying field.
Well, avid Precision Racing League fans, avid Precision Racing League followers will have noticed that there's a very, very familiar name in the top 5. Daniel Knight, who has been out for a couple seasons in the Precision Racing League, has shown up once more here in round 4 at Laguna Seca. Daniel Knight is usually a Truck Series regular. He has 7 wins over in the PRL NASCAR Truck Series, but like I said, he's been out for a couple seasons. He's shown up again, mysteriously on the GT3 Fixed Series now, and he's just put it in 5th place in a Lamborghini, which is pretty impressive.
Great shot of the cars cresting the rise at turn 1 and beginning what is a full pace lap here, so we have no worries, I should say, about tire temperatures when we go racing. Starting to see him. Who else is going to surprise? I think we're in for a fun fight, because once again a nice mix of manufacturers at the very front of the field. BMW, Ferrari, Porsche, Lamborghini inside of the top 5, with an Audi behind them as well. This is a track where the balance of the car will very much change over the course of the race as well, especially as the fuel burns out, even with our limited fuel tanks.
We've seen the Porsche always have a little bit of difficulty later on in the runs as it gets a little bit lighter, as it decides to pendulum around. That's always been the spinniest one, and there's plenty of places, especially going down the corkscrew, where the elevation changes so harshly. If you're not ready for what the car's about to do there, that is going to be Spin City. That's our turn 11 at Motegi. That's our turn 5 at Road Atlanta this week. It's not a difficult corner necessarily. It seems like it's just a straightforward flick to the left, but it's after that left where it gets really, really difficult.
And this, of course, is the corner that many will talk about. Watch the cars drop away, and of course on a formation lap it's important not to bottle up with one another, and after that sweep your way down through the sometimes double apex left-hander. Prediction then, Joey, as we get set to go racing for the 4th time this season.
It's impossible to predict, but there's 3 of our winners of the first 3 races in the top 6. Maybe it'll go to somebody who hasn't won one this season, though.
So it's Andrew Rasmussen, the points leader, that is all the way back in 12th position. It's Michael Terrafino in that Team Beef BMW trying to redeem himself after struggle 7 days ago. That will get us racing here at the WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. It's a great start for the BMW. Side by side, Porsche's fight for 3rd. Field still coming through the final corner as the leaders dive down the hill in towards turn number 2. 3rd place bullies his way forward as Bonatti sees Floyd Kerr dive down the inside. The Audi with a monster of a start. He's up to 4th.
Everybody knows how difficult it is to pass at Laguna Seca. They know they have to make the move right now as soon as they can. The opportunities are being given to them right now, and it looks like Fleischmann's already in trouble at the back of the field. But other than that, clean through the first couple of corners, but look for a lot of drivers to get very, very aggressive now, because now is the time to make the move.
It's Carollo who got past, I think, Fleischmann, and then Knight went around on the outside of turn number 5. A little bit of chaos there as they work up the hill into turn 6, and this is where you've got to get it right on the opening lap. Single file is what you'll see, but now up into the corkscrew, it's Terrafino, already 6/10 clear of 2nd, 1.5 clear of 3rd.
Got to make it through the corkscrew, especially on cold tires. You can see the elevation change, but the elevation change going down isn't really the thing to worry about. Oh, it looks like one of the Team Beef drivers. I think that might be Roy Brown on the wall.
I think it's Glenn Vanko. It's so hard. Yes, it is indeed. The 29 has gone around, and now Wool's got to watch the rejoin as Daniel Knight comes across the scene of the incident. Terrafino leads lap number 1, though, with 33.5 minutes left to go. It's a top 2 breakaway right now. Espinoza once again piling on the pressure.
Poor old Daniel Knight. I gave him a shout out for a great qualifying, and then and then he ends up throwing it off the road at turn 6, one of the most difficult parts of the track. But watch for him to drive his way through the field. We know he has pace to get back up into the top 6, and things are still getting crazy in the midfield with 45 cars. Things aren't going to be solved everywhere in the field on lap 1. There's still some positions that need to be figured out here, and Nick Silver in the championship leading team is trying to make a move on Dale Peterson, and Peterson's not going to fight that too hard.
Yeah, Peterson made the mistake, and that's what really set it up. But Brandon Six has gone around on the outside of that corner, and the Porsche will light up the tires as he tries to spool it up and get out. Now Rasmussen has had issues as well. Chaos in the opening stages here at the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, and your championship leader is back on pit lane.
Looked like he went straight off at turn 6 and then just parked it, so I wonder if either he had some sort of suspension problem or he had some sort of sim racing equipment failure, which would be terribly ironic, and it keeps going.
Yep, Sean Duhamel goes around as well. My watch, Apple Watch, just tried to alert me that I'm in a loud environment right now. How do I tell Siri that's just me shouting at myself?
Just yell even louder at him.
That's Thomas Amos around the outside of Ryan Chandler, and I tell you what, that's not usually a place where you make it stick. Beautiful move done in that Mercedes, the Ferrari on the Mercedes, but now stacks up once again into the final corner. So important to get a good run out there. It will be Chandler in the Mercedes that runs a little bit wide. Rodrigo Morales trying to take advantage. And I tell you what, man, I have no idea what's going on right now, Joey, and how many people have had issues to start this race off.
Well, I hope you have fun building up the replay spool there, because that's gonna be a pretty long thing to look at in a moment here. Alex Wright is not going to be calm anytime soon. He's got Dave Peterson now behind, the driver who's taken on that fire-breathing McLaren. Like we always like to point out, he's had some struggles with it. He's had worse qualifyings than we'd expect from Dave Peterson, but he's always a driver who gets aggressive in the races. He's always a guy who's moving his way forward. He's not quite able to get close enough to the back of Alex Wright here in turn 5, but he's certainly pushing that McLaren, and I don't think he's going to give up on it. I think he really likes that. Oh, and Daniel Knight again.
Off the road again in that black and gold Lamborghini. Now we watch as Kalaga defends from Silver down through the corkscrew, and it is still, by the way, a top 2 breakaway at the front. Now it's Jeff Costello, and it's again, like I said, it's not the corkscrew that's the most difficult corner on this track. It's turn 6, and we've seen that repeatedly, but as we'll finish lap 3 and tick over to lap 4, it is still Espinosa once again putting on the pressure. And let's turn back the clock to a week ago, Joey, and remind ourselves of just how Terrafino found himself in harm's way.
Yeah, Michael Terrafino did absolutely nothing wrong last week. He should have been on track for a perfectly fine second place, just completely uneventful behind Espinosa. And then, unfortunately, the Mercedes of Matt Dinsmore got into an accident and kind of decided to back out directly on the racing line. Espinosa made it through, Terrafino did not. But here's the action this week, and that was the first one, but something tells me there's going to be a lot more coming.
Yeah, that was just what happened to Jeff Fleischman, and then it was after that in towards what's turn 4. And of course we saw Carollo going for the move, and it's just cold tires, overcommitting. It's so easy to do. And then had to wait an age to be able to rejoin the track. Now what happens to Glenn Vanko? And oh, it's a checkup in front really that I think causes a humongous stack up.
Yeah, Doucette and I think Benatti and a few other drivers. Actually, that was Benatti's teammate, but yeah, that's the checkup at the corkscrew. That always seems to happen. Unfortunately, 5 drivers managed to make contact with each other there. I think one of the Cloud Valve racing cars is a little bit of rear end damage as well. Nothing terrible except for Glenn Vanko, but there's going to be a lot of crunkled bumpers up there.
And this is what happened to Brandon Six, and he doesn't even get 2 tires into the grass. He loses it early, and he's so lucky that that did not go worse for him. And then I think Andrew Rasmussen is the one who had that little bit of contact and goes off into the gravel. But surely that can't be all the damage that takes out the points leader.
Yeah, that's why he went straight. That's why we saw him go straight off there. He clipped it just enough that it basically ripped the front suspension out of that Audi, and it was just unsteerable. This was Sean Duhamel going around. Another easy mistake to do. You want to take as much speed through the first corner out of the corkscrew, you dip it off into the sand, and then the Porsche spins around again at turn 6 here for Costello. Turn 6 is going to be the critical place here. It's one of my least favorite corners in racing because it's so difficult, and everybody in the field is finding that same way.
and then Matt Dinsmore, just completely send it into the corner. And we've been so busy cycling through replays, there's still more going on. Carl Streikart gets in front of Gary Baum because I think now he's gone off the road at turn 6. That was Kalaga who went round after Peterson has his issue. And I tell you what, I've got so many event notices on my thing that I don't even think we can go through all of these replays because it's still going on. Baron Glover around, Jad Khalife mixed up as well.
We came into Laguna Seca expecting a race that might have been a little bit of a parade, as Laguna Seca usually is, but I'll take this. This is plenty of action. It's given us plenty of things to talk about, and we've got a great race going on up front as well. Espinosa hasn't stopped putting on the pressure, and they're still racing for just about every single spot in the middle of the field as Cole Antonio has kept it on track, and Roy Brown is holding up a Porsche duet here.
Well,
Sully Saad, Nick Silver.
And to put it in context, we started with 43. We're not 10 minutes into this. We're down to just 35 cars left on track. It is truly that being chaotic of a race. And this, I think, is the battle that epitomizes just how hectic it has truly been. You've got so many strong contenders mixed up here. Andrew Rasmussen, by the way, update on your championship leader, has seen how many cars have had issues and is trying to salvage championship points. 3 laps down, but returns to the track.
You get points for every single position on road courses in the PRL as long as you finish 50% of the race. So,
Terrafino!
There goes Terrafino.
Wide through the corkscrew under the pressure from Espinosa, and the prancing horse gallops its way back to the race lead, and this time he did it on track.
And I think Terrafino might have actually gotten a slowdown for technically cutting the corkscrew there. So he added insult to injury there, made a mistake, and then had to give up the position entirely. So Espinosa takes the lead, and it looks a lot like Road Atlanta now. But we'll see how good Terrafino is on offense compared to defense here. Can he stick with Espinosa?
Watch them dive down the hill, extend the track as much as possible, and then sweep down through the actual opening couple of corners. Greg Doucette in the Plaid car has gone around, and now this is a very dangerous place to be trying to rejoin. Be able to spin it around, but he'll lose some positions down into turn 1. The battle for 8th continues. Cole Antonio able to get past Nick Silver, and the Porsche versus Porsche battle is opening the door for the likes of Dale Peterson to continue fighting in his Ferrari.
Dale Peterson easily winning the Inter-D Peterson battle this week. The Ferrari really seems to be a great car here. Espinosa's got the Ferrari in the lead. Dale Peterson and his Ferrari continues to move his way up through the field. You can see he's advanced 6 spots since the start, which a lot of those have been because of calamity in front of him, but that's part of racing. That's part of driving Laguna Seca. That's the easiest way to get spots, when you can keep it on the track and the others in front of you can.
The biggest mover is Nick Silver, at least inside of the top 10. He's plus 10. Thomas Amos is plus 15 and 19. Juan Iturbe, 24th, plus 16. So there are plenty of recipients of freebies, if you will. But 25 minutes to go, so plenty to play for. It's Gary Brown who now tries to slide it down the inside, and I think Dale Peterson recognized it wasn't worth fighting. Now it'll be Scherf in the next Porsche to try and work his way forward. I think it's fair to say the Porsche is the GT3 car of preference, and that's why, to be fair, so many of our competitors are willing to take a 20-point hit to switch to it mid-season.
Brandon Six took those 20 points, and there might just be a few others who decide to do that. Maybe some drivers who are already down and out of the championship, at least in their minds. Oh my goodness, great braking zone for Rasmussen there, and Peterson has just been hemorrhaging positions here.
Yeah, and I think now, if anything, Rasmussen is going to have to lose out, because there we go, back down the inside. Of course, Rasmussen 3 laps down, to be fair. He will be fighting, but more for fun, I would say, in this one, and now pushes wide. Whoa. The Audi's not known for being the most stable of friends. You've got to be careful just how much over the limit you're willing to push it.
And that was a very, very damaged car. We saw it crabbing down the straight there. We saw it pull off onto pit road because it could steer with about 1 wheel. And that still might be damaged. The iRacing pit crew has banged it out with a couple of hammers. They've straightened it out as best they can, but that's still a damaged car. And he's still going to be struggling with that Audi. But his only objective right now is to keep it on track, to finish this race, and get as many points as he can, because he is the championship leader.
So there will go the Lamborghini firing on past. Gap for the lead. 1 and a bit seconds. I think 1.2 at the line. So I don't know what Espinosa is cooking, but 4 tenths quicker that last time by with a 126. Yes, we've lost a lot of lap time compared to the fastest laps of this race. Already half a second slower for Espinosa, but he is still the fastest man on the track, and by some margin.
And this looks a lot like Road Atlanta last week. I have to keep making the comparisons just because it looks so similar. We saw Espinosa just pulling away from Terrafino, inch by inch by inch, a couple of tenths per lap, just a little bit moving forward, and he's done exactly the same so far this week. Terrafino was able to fight back last week. He actually closed the gap up to about half a second before he got taken out, I think. But that's going to be later on in the race. And Floyd Kerr is finding struggles as well. He's been driving his way through the field. He wants the podium back, but he's got another incident point. You got to think about those. You only get 13 incident points before you get a drive through here.
And it's only 35 laps, so you're very much right. You do have to keep those in mind, but these two very much separated from everyone. 3 seconds behind Terrafino, about 7 seconds clear of Strykars in the 54, and then another 7-8 seconds back to Brown, Sard, and Colantonio, and that battle pack that we've been tracking. So to see exactly how it works out. Gap again at the line, 1.2. This time Terrafino able to keep it a little bit closer. Gary Brown able to work past Nick Silver, who's coming down to pit lane with an early call, maybe just trying to find some clean air.
I think that's exactly what he's doing. He's looked at his relative. He's found a gap on track. Looking at the marching ants down there, where is there a gap on track? I have no clue, but clearly Nick Silver and Keeping It Real Esports think there is a gap somewhere that he can come out into, and that'll give him an advantage compared to racing in that little Porsche pack. He puts the fuel in the car, exits pit road. Let's see, I don't think he's going to rejoin behind anybody. Oh, dear.
And it's again Brandon Six this time at the final corner. I tell you what, we've missed so many moments of chaos. So just be aware, if there's a driver you're supporting, it's likely, unless they're at the very front of the field, they have been involved in something. Brown now past Colantonio, and I tell you what, Brown is really starting to recover after that start. Just dropped him down, has now been able to stymie the bleeding, only down 4 from the start.
And Gary Brown was the fastest driver in practice, so we know he has more pace than he had in qualifying, than he has running in 8th right now. He's a driver to look for to drive through, back up through the field. And Floyd Kerr is as well, as he has now gotten to 3rd. He's gotten by Andre Benatti, so look for them two to keep moving their way forward. Just to update you on Nick Silver, who just came into the pits, by the way. He has rejoined about 2 seconds behind Bob Cohn, so he's got a little bit of clean air, and then there's 8 seconds in front of Bob Cohn. So he actually has found a gap. He does have 1 car to pass, though.
This could be worse, is what we're saying.
It could certainly be worse, and I think it's probably better than being in that Porsche cloud.
Yeah, I was going to say it could be worse because you're Brandon Six, you're off the road for the 2nd time in half a lap. This time it's on the exit of 6, and just sometimes when it rains, it pours. It's one of those days for the number 4 here today. Check back in with the battle for 10th. Kalaga is now 1.2 seconds back from Colantonio, with Scherf, Peterson, and Carollo behind. Elcar down onto pit road as Bob Cohn in the 32 elects, let's follow Nick Silver and see if I can find some clean air to try and run to the rest of this race.
And then there's 10 seconds in front of Nick Silver of completely clean track. So that might be an absolute masterclass in terms of strategy there. That might work out perfectly. And look at Terrafino. He's brought the gap down by about 6 tenths again. The gap is fluctuating. The last lap for him was 3 tenths faster than Espinosa. This might just be an unpredictable battle. Both drivers might just be struggling a little bit here to extract all the lap time they need. And the gap is just kind of naturally expanding and falling and expanding and falling. And that bodes well for the next 20 minutes of this race if we can't predict what's about to happen.
So again, a top 2 breakaway. And now Benatti starting to be dropped in that battle for 3rd. Here's the battle with Matt Dinsmore and Duhamel as Dinsmore 2 tires in the gravel. And that's great car control, to be completely fair. All sorts of out of shape, but that Mercedes in 26th will be able to hold on.
I think they do Formula Drift here at Laguna Seca at times, so we might just sign up Matt Dinsmore to come back here for that, because that was incredible. I'm sure he wishes it wasn't incredible. I'm sure he wishes he could have kept all 4 tires on the grass, but that's the best way to save an accident over there at turn 6. You don't often see people keeping the car pointed straight. You usually end up in those tires on the inside, but unlike last week, well done, Matt Dinsmore. You've redeemed yourself.
Looks like Andrew Rasmussen has returned to pit lane to try and get some damage repair. Let's pick up those few moments for Brandon Six. So he's the first victim of those right tires this time on the gravel into the braking zone. And then into 6 once again, just trying to extend the track too much. And let's ride on board for this moment with Matt Dinsmore. And it just looked so easy from that vantage point. It wasn't, I can guarantee you that.
The old Dinsmore drift. We're going to have to dub it that for the rest of the race, because I guarantee you, he wasn't the first driver to dip 2 tires off there, and he's not going to be the last one. We saw Brandon Six do it twice in 1 lap and wasn't able to recover like he was. So everybody, I hope you're watching the broadcast mid-race. I hope you're still focused, but I hope you're learning from Matt Dinsmore, because that's how you save a race car.
We'll see Chris Colantonio dive to pit lane, as now it's Jeff Carollo's Lamborghini was gone and past Dale Peterson. And after finally being able to experience GT3 cars for the very first time this past weekend, I can confirm that all those turbo-powered cars sound terrible compared to the Lamborghini and to the Porsche. The Lamborghini is just such a visceral sound, and I gotta say, got back home this weekend, jumped into iRacing, and iRacing has captured it so well.
I think the best thing for me to do is to just stop talking here and let people listen to the sounds of the Porsche and the Lamborghini. We can ride on board here with Jeff Carollo as he tries to chase down one of those delicious Porsches of Matt Scherf here. Something tells me he wants to have that sound behind him, though. He's down 3 spots in this race, but we know Jeff Carollo has a lot of speed. Finished second at Road America to kick off the season. Up the hill, he's a little bit tidier than Scherf was up ahead. But Scherf, with his untidy line, seems to be absolutely flying off there in the distance. He's just extended a little bit further forward. He's all the way to the back of Kalaga, and Carollo's just kind of all on his lonesome here. He's losing time. Well,
and to your point about the incidents, right, you gain so much by extending the track, but you have to know how much you can extend by and be able to execute consistently, Kalaga to pit lane, and it is a tricky pit lane here. Just ask a certain Roman Grosjean. Yes, he was driving a Honda Civic Type R, but he has crashed on pit entry here.
Yeah, we've not had a great sequence of tracks for easy pit entries. Road Atlanta last week is always difficult. The Motegi pit entry was horrific. And now we come to Laguna Seca, where even the best of the best have binned it in rental cars with Ed Jones in the passenger seat. But it's past halfway now in the race, so understandably the pit cycle's really kicking off now. We're seeing all sorts of the fireworks, but we got to wait for a couple more laps to see all the leaders come in, because there are no gaps on track right now with how spread out everybody is.
Yeah, no, I mean, this track map illustrates that perfectly. And I got to say, with how we got, what, 43 cars here, and these are just GT3 cars, yes. It has got me very worried for not this coming Sunday, but the Sunday after, and the second round of the IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship. Battle up into the corkscrew. Sully Sard around the outside will pinch Roy Brown. Open the door for Gary Brown to try and slide down the inside. And while they'll fight side by side down through the double left-handers, it's Roy Brown that wins the inter-battle to be the best Brown.
Roy Brown and Gary Brown unrelated as far as I know. There might be something I don't know there, but Gary Brown dives into the inside, heavy braking zone into the final corner. That's one of the better places to make a move, but the outside, you wouldn't expect it to work as well as it does at such a tight corner like that. But Roy Brown, in the Team Beef Porsche, able to get a much better run, and they've been stuck side by side for about half a lap now, and it's not going to let up into turn 1. Brown's later on the brakes, but Brown, I need to specify the first names here, finally has to fall back.
And now we can enjoy the sound of this Porsche 911 GT3R. The outgoing Porsche 911 GT3R is a new generation race car, joins the ranks of the Porsche Motorsports family for 2023. Of course, not the only GT3 car coming next year. We'll see a new Lamborghini Evo concept come. Ferrari launching their brand new model as well. Plenty to be excited about as GT3 cars get ready to head back to the French countryside. More pit stops underway. Matt Dinsmore, Brandon Six, Ryan Luna, just a handful of those that have dived towards pit lane, with now just about 14, 15 cars yet to make their likely mandatory trip, just by the nature of how much fuel these cars are allowed to have, trip down to pit lane.
If we were going to a street circuit this season, we might start thinking about a zero stop. We've seen it be done at Long Beach. It's probably possible at Detroit as well, maybe Chicago if we ever go there, but basically every natural road course we go to, there will be a pit stop. You can't save fuel for 35 minutes with the fuel restriction here, and Andre Bonatti knows that. Kyle Strykars knows that. It's all Porsches, or it's a lot of Porsches who have been coming down lately, but there's still a lot of Ferraris and BMWs and Audis that have managed to stick it out a little bit longer.
All these sayings about you can't save fuel, that sounds like a challenge for some drivers. Street courses do tend to lend themselves to the fuel-saving races, like you point out. I think Casey Curran calls it his yearly fuel, Jamie Fluke rather calls it his yearly fuel-saving trip to Laguna Seca in the GT3 car, rather to the streets of Long Beach in the GT3 cars. Bonatti will rejoin 8/10 back from Alex Wright, and then 5 seconds adrift from Carollo's Lamborghini, so not the worst place in the world to rejoin, but we'll have some work to do. Meanwhile, on pit lane, check in with Ryan Chandler, who is likely going to have to fight as he works off a pit lane with Joe McCauley's BMW, only stopping for 11 seconds compared to 15 for Chandler.
Our jobs have been made much easier this week because Regan Chandler, unfortunately, is not in the field tonight. It's only Ryan, so there's only one Chandler to identify in that Mercedes, but hopefully we see Regan back. We always love seeing both of the Chandlers, but we don't love seeing the understeer of that Mercedes there. Ryan Chandler almost throws it off the road on the pit lane, does recover, but he had to crawl to get that thing back out on track. That's a difficult place to go off because that dirt just eats, it just pulls you out there. And you got to steer it back on somehow. It took him a while, though.
Yeah, and it just illustrates how tricky the pit exit is. The Megiar's Porsche of Scherf will now be the latest recipient of a trip to pit lane and a top-up of fuel. Your leaders are starting to have to navigate their way past some lap traffic and will ride on board with Terrafino and the Team Beef BMW as he crests up in towards the corkscrew. Approaching 12 minutes to go in this 35-minute sprint for the Precision Racing League GT3 Fixed Series. It's 9/10 the gap between Espinosa and Terrafino, and Floyd Kerr has kept them honest through the traffic. It's down to just 3 seconds to his Audi.
Espinosa's going to come in here. I expected that to happen. There was a lapped BMW. One of the Clow Valve cars ahead did not want to deal with that lapped car, so both him and Terrafino are going to come in. Kerr's going to follow him in as well. We've got a three-way battle for this win now. Floyd Kerr always has more race pace than qualifying pace. And like you mentioned, he's just been chasing him down by tenths of a second per lap. He was almost a full second faster on the last lap, so it's a three-way battle for this win now. But Terrafino and Espinosa, it's going to come down to tenths here on the race-off pit lane.
So this race-off pit lane will be crucial for track position, knowing how difficult it is to pass and knowing just how much traffic there will be. It will be Espinosa that wins comfortably that race off a pit road. Floyd Kerr might even drop a little bit further back by virtue of a 2-second longer pit stop than some of his other competitors. 7/10 the margin between Espinosa and Terrafino, though, as they round the corner, and Terrafino off the road, and that will gift Espinosa crucial track position and time with 11 minutes still left to run.
You can see the BMW bouncing a little bit as the ABS, the traction control, were kind of freaking out as he threw it off into the dirt. Tried to recover, but it didn't want to accelerate. He wasn't on the track, and it's going to lose him so much more time. You can see about 3.5 seconds of time has been lost there, and it looks like Costello or Cole Antonio has gotten into even more trouble at turn 6. It's bid again. Lamborghinis, Porsches, they're all going around.
That was Kenny Rodriguez and Patrick Cowgill. It was indeed Cole Antonio before, as now Randy Gross, I think, is the one on the outside of the corner. Will ride and just look on board with Terrafino in a moment, because it's so easy to do. He's pushing, he's trying to minimize the delta as they rejoin the track, but as soon as you're in the gravel, it's a painful amount of time before you're back up to racing speed.
And you also have to make sure to lock it down harder than you've ever locked it down before, because it's one thing to make that mistake, to lose a little bit of time. It's another thing to throw it back out onto the racetrack and get an unsafe pit exit penalty and have to come down for a drive-through and finish like 10th or 11th instead of on the podium. Did Greg Doucette just Romain Grosjean that wall there? I'm not sure, but it looked like he got pretty close to it.
He definitely got close. I think he's all right, though. So now I think we really watch this battle for second, as it will be Terrafino trying to fend off Kerr. Audi versus BMW. And the Porsche domination has been kept off the podium as Kerr dips the left rear into the gravel. And I tell you what, Audi's known for going off-roading, but not this one, that's for sure.
It was a great save. You don't often see that kind of thing be saved, but Floyd Kerr is kind of just racing for second here with that 2-second loss on pit lane compared to Espinosa and Terrafino, and he's been given a gift with that mistake from Terrafino. He's going to have far, far less time to make up here. He's probably faster than Terrafino on race pace, but that BMW is going to be very, very wide. Both of these drivers should be higher than they are in the championship, because Terrafino got taken out through no fault of his own last week. Floyd Kerr got taken out by his VR failing 2 weeks ago. They're two drivers who have had some misfortune this season, but if they're going to fight for the championship, they both want this podium, but they both want those extra 3 points that hops from between second and third, too.
Nick Silver plus 12, biggest mover in the top 10, up to 7th position after starting just inside of the top 20. It's Joe McCauley as well as Juan Iturbe tied plus 16 highest movers on the day. While we continue to track this fight for second place, Kenny Rodriguez has just taken the toe to pit lane. 43 started, 28 are left on the leading lap. And let's not forget just how crazy and chaotic and turbulent those opening couple of laps truly were.
It's going to be impossible to forget. We almost just finished the replays a couple of minutes ago. It seemed like that's how long it took to show everybody all the action.
Some of the action.
Yeah, just a small percentage of the action. It's like how you only see 1% of the internet when you're out there. There's so much stuff underneath. And there's only 8 minutes in this race now. The first 27 minutes of this race have absolutely flown by. The pit stops came very, very late. And now there's only so little time to the end of this race that it's given Terrafino such a small amount of time to catch up to Espinosa. It's given Kerr such a small amount of time to make up those 3 minutes. It's basically a sprint to the end now.
2.2 seconds. So Terrafino actually not as far back as I thought he might be, so maybe there's a chance of a fight for the lead, a three-way fight for the lead, but let's be real, it is likely just pushing and willing it won. Sully Saad has been off the track and now fights with Alex Wright. Tell you what, there are still plenty of little groupings of cars, and at a track like this where you're pushed so much, even 35 minutes, a sprint race feels like an eternity. It can be so easy to make mistakes. And going back to the right of the front, traffic starting to play a factor as well as Terrafino and Kerr continue to try and close on that Ferrari.
Dinsmore and Costello are the two in front, and those are two drivers who have made mistakes in this race. Two drivers who you might not necessarily want to be behind. Espinosa's going to catch Dinsmore here coming up to turn 6. Dinsmore's going to be very, very kind, give him the inside into turn 6. He's not going to fight with one of the leaders. I think Terrafino's going to be having some war flashbacks here because Dinsmore's about to rejoin in front of him. Frankly, or very thankfully, there's no Terrafino to Dinsmore contact, and that actually helped Terrafino quite a bit because he got out of the way.
It's Floyd Kerr that actually loses out the most in that cycle. Now 1.8 splits Espinosa and Terrafino, that Ferrari versus BMW. With still a Porsche in the way, I believe it's Costello in the number 10, and it is, and Espinosa will deal with him through the final corner. Crucially, just trying to get the run in towards the opening braking zone of the lap and try and ensure that now he can set up this opening sector the best way possible. Terrafino will have to deal with the Porsche in this opening sector. It's 1.2 for the race lead.
And fastest lap of the race by Terrafino. Oh, courageous.
And yeah, he's lost the entirety of the front end of that BMW, which I think is fair to say it's not the biggest shame in the world.
It's interesting how that BMW looks exactly the same on the front end when it's normal and when the bumper's taken off of it.
It looks just as good, I think is the way you were trying to phrase it.
Maybe.
So,
I wasn't forming an opinion. I'm unbiased.
I'm the one who is going to have to deal with those comments working for BMW this coming Sunday. Wide and pull, you just see how it spins on him, and he doesn't hit the tires, he hits the wall, and that's why the damage is so significant.
Who put that wall there? Or let's reverse it this week. Who didn't put that wall there? If there were tires there, Nicholas Carangis would have been fine, but you always seem to find the most awkward places of the track that are going to damage your car the most there. And Throttle Thursday cars, they're always so consistent, but unfortunately, everybody makes mistakes, especially at Laguna Seca. It's a matter of when and not if.
So now that they're through some of the traffic, it's up to 1.6 between Espinosa and Terrafino. Kerr gifted something there slightly because Costello has gone off the track and is I don't know how he's ended up there.
Neither do I. I wonder if he had some help or if he just really, really overcorrected a slide. I'm not sure, but we're finding new places to wreck cars.
He
did get help by Floyd Kerr.
Yeah, he didn't just get help. That was a healthy dose of help. We'll ride here and we'll take a look at it. To be fair, Kerr is just running, and they say stay on your racing line if you're a lapped car. That was not predictable. If that the 68 car is the argument I would be trying to make.
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with you, and I think the stewards will agree with you as well if that does come under review, because Floyd Kerr didn't have any time to react to that. He thought he was just going to just follow Jeff Costello through there, and I think Costello was trying to let him by, but there's times when being nice like that actually makes you less nice. And Floyd Kerr is going to have a little bit of damage on the front end of that Audi now until the end of the race.
I was going to say that gap between even just second and third up to 2.5 seconds. So very much, I think the 68 dealing with damage. But at the very least, back on the podium. It's now the fight for first. That will intrigue us. 3 minutes, 30 seconds with a minute 20 or so lap. I think 3 laps still left for Terrafino and that BMW to find a way forward.
I want to know where that 1:20.0 came from when he ran that fastest lap of the race a couple laps ago, because he just did a 1:20.6. He's back on the normal pace. He's back equal with Espinosa. Both of these drivers have just been unable to consistently hit the optimal lap times that they need, and it's just ballooning this gap up and down and up and down. If one of them can just consistently nail it.
You saw what I saw, right?
I don't think I did.
Okay, we'll move on. We don't need to address it anymore. I did a race once, an IndyCar official race, a community broadcast. I think you might even know the one I'm talking about, Joey. Phillip Island.
I don't know.
Maybe.
You might need to educate the viewers.
It was literally 60% watching replays.
Ah.
Yeah, it was potentially the most fun I've ever had on a broadcast after an event I did this past weekend where we had completely uneducated sim racers, by which I mean some of them had literally never done any racing before, whether it be real or virtual, in the rigs. But that was a pretty close second. Terrafino, look how much he's just pushing that rear end of the BMW on the throttle, snapping into gear, going forward. 1.3 with 2 laps to go. I'm just struggling to see a way forward, let alone to pass, but just to close this gap within the remaining time of the race.
Terrafino's hope is that his luck, his karma just reverses around, and Sean Duhamel, Bob Cohn, Thomas Amos up ahead, they cause a little bit of trouble for Espinosa. I don't think they will. In general, other than a little bit of an incident with Jeff Costello and Floyd Kerr, the lap cars have done a very, very good job of letting the leaders by at a track where it's kind of difficult to do that in some places. But that's Terrafino's only hope, really, unless he can get that 1:20.0 out of the time. Oh, dear. There's Sully Saad.
Not being the easiest day for many drivers, it's fair to say. It's Sully Saad that goes around at the bottom of the corkscrew, will drop him down to 19th spot. We watch now as Carl Streikars in the SRT Esports Porsche tries to defend 5th position from the resurgent Gary Brown, who has 2 laps to go to try and work back into the top 5. And if there's anyone I wouldn't want to see in my rearview mirrors at this stage in the race, it is the number 49.
Downtown Gary Brown coming up the hill. He can't send it to the inside of the corkscrew. We've done too many Romain Grosjean references so far in this broadcast, but that could have been a move if he decided to send it to the inside, but he probably wouldn't have gotten that car stopped. He probably would have just bounced off Streikars, but this is the ultimate pressure again. It seems like Streikars is always defending like this against somebody.
Oh! Sorry, never mind.
Duhamel got out of the way, false alarm.
It was just the angle of that camera shot. We are starting the final lap of the race as well. That's why we are focusing on that race lead once again, because Espinosa and Terrafino have not one, but 2 cars in front with 3/4 of the lap still left to go.
And Terrafino is critically within a second, so if Espinosa gets held up here, Terrafino has no cars between the two of them. There's no buffer. There's one mistake from Espinosa. This completely opens it up for Terrafino.
So turn 6, one of the crucial choke points. 1 bit of lap traffic out of the way for Espinosa. Terrafino will have to deal with it as well, but into the corkscrew, will there be anything for Terrafino to try and fight for? He's 1.3 back. It won't be close enough. Espinosa has a couple of corners still left to cruise.
Bob Cohn was Espinosa's best friend there. He let Espinosa by. He couldn't let Terrafino by before turn 6, and that's what just won this race for Espinosa.
Well, Joey was predicting a calm, quiet-free night. I think just because he asked for that, we got chaos instead. What a race here at the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. But it is back-to-back. It will be Andres Espinosa, the first time a repeat winner this season that wins the Precision Racing League GT3 Fixed Series. Michael Terrafino in the BMW, just 1.3 back at the line with Floyd Kerr's Audi rounding out the podium. The class of the field with those 3 drivers, and then those behind will wait an age for them to come across the line.
It's a quiet day for Bonatti, but after the insanity we've had tonight, a quiet day is probably one of the better things you can have here at Laguna Seca. The quietest 4th place of all time. Brown was able to get by strike cars too, who I think must have made a mistake because he lost about 7 seconds on the last lap.
I'm not sure if it was a mistake or if it was contact, but
no.
I tell you what, the replay will tell us, and the replay is pretty telling. I'll leave it at that.
I'm surprised that car is still going. There was such a huge puff of smoke. I thought we blew the engine of that Porsche, but Kyle Stryker somehow still has power in that car, and Gary Brown just misjudged that. Needed a few more inches to the left there.
Slam dunk penalty?
Probably, but it's always difficult. It always depends if the drivers protest it, but it's an unfortunate night to be named Kyle Strike Cars.
Ugh.
Well, actually, it was Gary who struck the car, so that didn't work.
I need to shake some of these puns off. But I tell you what, Joey, another race where it's... You know, I'm glad that you predicted quiet, because now we go to the race where hopefully we get enough chaos to deprive Sean Campbell of another victory.
Yeah, I've always got to be tough here, because I got to be unbiased. I can't say I want Sean Campbell to lose, but at the same time, this guy's undefeated. It's the elephant in the room. We want to see somebody else finally knock him down. We want to see that storyline happen, and we want to see a good race put to him, so he'll finally talk to us here after the race.
True, yes, that too as well. Let's run you down through those race results, though, after the 26 laps. It is back-to-back for Andres Espinosa in that SRT Esports number 87 Ferrari, but Michael Terrafino, the Team Beef 94, in second, trying to chase him down all the way through traffic, just not working out at the end after putting it on pole. Floyd Kerr moves forward to round out the podium and break up the sea of Porsches that runs behind. Bonatti, the best of them, 27th for We Race Esports, with Gary Brown fighting his way back up to 5th. Completing the top 5. Kyle Strykars, with that incident on the final lap, will likely regain a stranglehold on the top 5 spot here today after coming into this one 3rd in the championship. Nick Silver plus 12 to 7th. Roy Brown, Eric Kulaga, and Matt Scherf round out the top 10. Jeff Carollo had a couple of offs in his Lamborghini. He comes across the line in 11th, with Dale Peterson in the Cloud Valve Racing Ferrari behind. Steven Martinez in the Vulture Motorsports South number 53 13th, with Throttle Thursdays 85, Greg Doucette 14th, Angelo Velos 15th, Alex Wright, Joe McCauley, Ryan Chandler, Sally Sarden, Thomas Amos complete the top 20. As we work over to 21st, we see those one lap down, and it's a lot of them, and a lot more retiring as well. Sean DeHamel 21st with Bob Cohn, Rodrigo Morales, Matt Dinsmore, Glenn Vanko, Jeff Costello, Rodrigo McKellen, Chris Colantonio, Nicholas Carangas, and Wanu Turbe through the top 30. And then we get to the graveyard. We'll cycle through them, but I mean, Joey, what a crazy way to kick off the first part of the doubleheader of GT3 here on Tuesday night.
And now we move into the GT3 Sprint Series, where there's going to be more cars, there's going to be more dynamics with a AM class and a Pro class, so technically there's 2 races in one. And I hope we can just replicate this race here and have a little bit more chaos. A great race up front. It's probably not good for your fingers, for your keyboard fingers, for your computer Arjuna, but I think that's good for the product.
I enjoy hectic races like that, that is for sure. And well, 45 started. Technically 44 started, but we are definitely in for a treat. After this, of course, we got plenty of excitement coming. 7 days from today, October the 18th, when we start our European swing and we head to Snetterton, and a track where we're going to have to be careful, Joe, one of the corner names, otherwise we'll get ourselves in trouble with Ofcom.
I don't actually remember my Snetterton corner names. I only remember the one that was renamed Wilson. I do know there's a corner at VIR that I'm not allowed to say.
Yes,
and
no,
Ofcom would knock down my door.
Yes, no. I'll come knocking at your door as well.
Oh no. Welcome to Pittsburgh.
8:20 p.m. Eastern, October 18, 2022. Of course, the first part of the doubleheader as we head over to the British Isles. We will wait and see if we are joined by any of the drivers, but I mean, after this, let's talk about what's after that, because October the 25th we'll go racing at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, then over to Oschersleben, the first of our new tracks here in 2022. In Season 4, Circuit of the Americas, Suzuka will be familiar venues, and then November 22nd, we wrap up the season with a trip to Rudskogen, which I think in some ways, Joey, will feel very similar in track to what we have in hosting us here today.
It should feel pretty similar because it's kind of an even match between high-speed corners and some tighter sections. It's a narrow track. It's a short lap. And also, those S's are kind of like the corkscrew in reverse. I know I spun plenty of IRO4 cars when we were racing there in the commentator race a couple weeks ago, so that's going to be even tougher in the GT3 cars. It'll be like taking a bus to a go-kart track.
Trying to see if we're going to get joined by any drivers. Don't think we are going to do so. So let's start to turn our attention to the GT3 Sprint Series. And of course, Joey, you mentioned it, undefeated is the one and only Sean Campbell, and we're hoping today for enough chaos to maybe spoil that fun. And you can see he's already built up almost 20 points as Diego Morales and Vincent Trepanier continue to be the best of the rest, fighting for second.
Vincent has kind of been the guy to chase down Sean Campbell, but Diego Morales has been slightly more consistent, so he has that one extra point in the championship. And then there's sort of a secondary championship underneath those three. Michelin Green, always consistent, understandable that he's in fourth, but there's some drivers who aren't even on this list, like Ted Lowendick, like Nick McLaughlin, and a few others who have had bad luck or they've made mistakes in the opening couple of weeks, but they've had more speed than some of the drivers in the top 10. But just like in the fixed series, consistency has very much been rewarded in the opening weeks, and that's why you see drivers like Arnaud Genet, Dave Menino, J.R. Williams hanging tough there in those last couple spots in the top 10.
Let's talk very quickly then about your AM standings as well, because unlike in the fixed series, we do break it up into Pro and AM, and it is Miguel Angel Fonseca that leads here, but it's by just 2 points. It's Blake Ziti and Rob Campbell tied for second. Turner Schroll, only 4 points, Black in fourth as well. This is a class where, of course, they're mixed up with the rest of the pros as they fight further back, and they've got to be careful with some of the pros maybe getting a little bit too physical, thinking the AMs should not be there on track. Ultimately, the AMs are making sure they are fighting within their class.
And this is one of the most crazy championships in all of the PRL this season. It's been so evenly matched. 11 points separate the top 5 right now, and Ryan Patrick, who finished second in last season's GT3 AM Championship, still needs to recover a little bit to get there up there with him. So a 6-way championship battle in AM.
Team standings always interesting as well, and we again break it up into Pro and AM. While RSR by Butt Kicker do have Sean Campbell in the stable with just a 2-driver lineup, they have a slight disadvantage to the ASR Esports Chrome team, who 7 points back will still have plenty to fight for as we work through the rest of this championship. Behind them, SimCity Racing, We Race Esports, 8 points between the two of them, while in the AM class it's just 3 points that splits with Lunatic Moonlight Speed Racing and the Hardpoint by Delta Sport Academy team, and then a further 5 points to the Long Island Racing team. I mean, when it comes to these sort of races, tracking team championships, and a race as chaotic as what we're in store for today, Joey, the reality is we're just going to be waiting to see next week how this week affects it.
Yeah, that's usually how the math goes, especially with all the bonus points and with the different point systems on road and oval. That's the mastery that old spreadsheet wizard Tyler Gore has to do in between the weeks. The thankless work that Tyler Gore does, but I got to give him a shout out because that guy has built incredible spreadsheets they've been using for almost 5 years now, and they look exactly the same as they did at the start, and that tells you that he's built a pretty darn good spreadsheet because there's been no changes to it.
So we'll get that sprint qualifying session started in about 60 seconds. Another talk quickly then about this WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. So much elevation change and so much history as well, but it might undergo a repaving soon that will potentially change the character of how this place races. Of course, you and I were talking about the NTT IndyCar Series races that have come here in the last couple of years as IndyCar shifted from Sonoma to Laguna for its end-of-season finale, and well, like we were saying during the sprint race, at the very least, Romain Grosjean has shown that you can pass into the corkscrew even if your name is not Alex Zanardi.
Got to be a little bit closer in the GT3 cars, which makes it a little bit more difficult, but also, while Romain Grosjean did do a little bit of contact racing with Jimmy Johnson, kind of shoved him through the corkscrew, you can do a little bit more door bang in these GT3 cars. You're not going to break a suspension, so maybe we will see drivers get a little bit more aggressive into the corkscrew after watching the fixed race.
So, we'll get that qualifying session started just about now, and once again, we'll put the pressure on the drivers here in the Jewel Lakes of the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. We saw, of course, Porsche domination not to be here today, at least when it came to the podium, with a Ferrari, a BMW, and Audi all represented up in the mix, but with this 10-minute qualifying session, we always know that it could go any way, and incident limits are bound to be not just an issue during the race itself, but a concern trying to get laps on the board in this go-fast session as drivers begin to roll out for qualifying. In your mind, with the cool track conditions that we have, Joey, despite seeing the fact that, you know, lap times dropped off so drastically, is it still the best approach to just go out there and look to try and get basically 2 flying laps out of the 4 attempts really out on track?
That seems to have been the way to go in previous weeks, and I have to imagine it's going to be the same trend this week. There's been times where, with these GT3 cars on iRacing, especially at night when we're in the endurance races, that it gets faster and faster over the course of the run. But here, in qualifying, it's a lot more straightforward in these sessions. You can get 2 really good laps, and that's really what you want to do. You want to go out for a short run, you want to maximize your lap time, come back and try it again, because you only get 4 laps, so there's no point in really taking all 4 in one sitting, I think.
Well, sorry, the sigh is because I've noticed the background for a certain Ted Lowendick is now Ted Lowendick himself. Here's a look at our featured driver webcams for today. Drivers in Pro and Am. We'll grab a look at them. Of course, you've got Caleb Lehman with the googly eyes VR goggles. Pete Newhook focused on his face in qualifying, and I don't even know how I'll describe the attire that Ted Lowendick has put as his background for today.
I'm going to embarrass myself as a bad PRL broadcaster, because I know there was a story behind Ted Lowendick in his bath cap and his rubber duckies. That was in a race last season, but I don't remember what it is. So I'm going to have to watch the moments of the PRL last season during this qualifying session so I can seem educated when we bring a zoom up again.
Okay, I'll let you know in advance when we're going back to that one. Again, solo car qualifying, bit of a moment there for Morales. Now we check in with Ted Lowendick as his RSR by butt kicker number 72 sweeps out of turn 4 and in towards turn 5. Now, do my eyes deceive me, or is a certain Sean Campbell not out there for today's race?
That's a good question. I have to wait for my timing screens to refresh here, but I do not see Sean Campbell. I have not heard the fact that Sean Campbell will not be here tonight, so it might... Yeah, no, he's not here. I've scrolled down.
I
see Ted Lowendick. We see him on our screen right now, but no Sean.
Yeah, so, well, we are guaranteed to have a new winner tonight, at least in the Pro class. Unfortunate that maybe we won't see Chaos. And of course, there is one drop round in this championship, so that is what Sean Campbell will be using. He needs results from here on forward, but let's be real, that is not necessarily going to be hard for him to deliver results. The times start to trickle on in qualifying. Caruso with the benchmark, a 1:19. It's immediately bettered by Ian Green. It's a 1:19.1 that we wait to see will hold.
Vincent Trepanier, as soon as you said that, just beat that down by about 2/10. Drew Becker, a good lap time to almost equal Mitchell Ian Green, but the field has been opened wide. If Sean Campbell isn't actually here tonight, unless he surprises us and shows up late in the qualifying session, it's wide open now. Is it going to be Trepanier who takes over the throne? Is it going to be Morales who takes over the throne? Who knows? It's a complete mystery, but I'm happy to have a mystery. I'm happy to see a new winner, potentially.
So one driver at least has failed to set a lap time on lap 1. SimCity Racing's Martin Crisp in the 954. Extending the limits of the track just a little bit too much. We wonder if it was going to be the call to just go lap 1 and 4. Vincent Trepanier pushing on that second lap, down through the corkscrew he'll go. Just under 2/10 currently. Splits in for the rest of the field, bouncing off the rev limiter as he dives into the final sector. Penultimate corner. Dive it in and hug the corner because it's cambered in, and Trepanier realizes the lap's not good enough. He'll bail and go. One more attempt to close it out.
Short lap, so you can come back into pit lane and go around again. If we were at Spa or someplace, you wouldn't actually be able to do that because the out lap is so long. But only a minute 19 here. You're easily able to come back and do what Vincent Trepanier is doing. Here's the driver who's 1 point ahead of Vincent Trepanier in the championship. Trepanier has had the pace over Morales, if I had to say, but Morales is always consistent. He's always there to pick up the pieces, and now that Sean Campbell appears to not be here this week, this is time for Diego to try and put himself at the top of the sheets. But Connor Wagner, wow.
It's Conor Wagner that by 200s will go to the top with a 1:19.003. Can Morales break the 1:19s and dip to the 1:18s? Yes, he can with a 1:18.763. It's a quarter of a second for Morales at the top of the field.
I was about to congratulate Conor Wagner on getting it up there, and suddenly Diego finds 2.5 tenths out of nowhere to just destroy that lap time. Conor Wagner has been struggling a little bit this season. The F3 Pro champion from last season has been kind of outclassed by the F3 AM champion Ryan Pucktel so far this season, but clearly he's figured out Laguna Seca. The front row, that's way higher than he's been this season.
So let's see if we can ride with Vincent Trepignet for a lap, and this will be starting his third attempt out of 4, so he will have an additional attempt after this one, but with the tires freshest, this is when you will want to push up and over what is technically turn 1, but the first heavy braking zone is all the way down here. Brake at the 3 and then dive into the first of the apexes. Some cars will like to swing out wide. Trepignet tentative on the throttle and up through the gears in towards turn number 3. So important to maximize the track on both ends and avoid the anti-cut curves. Trepignet tidy through the opening sector so far. Not onto the brakes through 4, lift off the throttle and then back at it, attacking foot to the floor on the run into the crucial turn number 5. Nice and tight for the Porsche, and this is all about getting the momentum up the hill and towards turn number 6 and up through the gears. Trepignet nice and tidy. We saw mistakes here in the fixed series, but look at the commitment on display from Trepignet, who hits his mark and climbs into the corkscrew. 7 stories of elevation drop, but it's all about nailing the second turn-in spot, and Trepignet finds that marker and dives it and glides it through the corner. Once again...
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I was once again waiting for him to bounce off the limiter, but he didn't do it this time. Maybe not as much speed through that corner, maybe saving the tires very slightly, but through this final one, got to be careful how wide you push because you will get your lap invalidated, and with a quarter of a second to find, Trepignet will build to the line, and in the ASR Esports machine, it's a 1:18.9, it's still a 10th and a half off the pace.
I was going to say, this is a driver who has done so much practice. He has found the absolute limits of this track. Unfortunately, though, when you found the absolute limits of yourself, when you found the fastest way around the track, and you still need to go faster, it's very, very difficult to find that lap time, and that's when you start overextending the limits like Michelin Green did there a little, because you're trying to find lap time that doesn't seem to exist, but somehow another driver has found it.
Is Conor Wagner going to be able to spoil the fun? 1:18.675. It's another pole position, and the hard point by Delta Sport Porsche once again is at the top.
Where was this Conor Wagner for the first 3 weeks? This is the Conor Wagner I'm more familiar with, and he's just finding those alien lap times that are just completely, they come out of complete thin air. You don't know where he's finding the time, but somehow he always does. Trepignet's going to get another shot, though. Now he's got another 2.5 tenth gap to pull, right when he brought another tenth down. And we'll see what he can do through the final corner. He dips it off into the grass through the outside of turn 10 there. I don't know if he'll get an off track for that, but it's going to slow him down just a little bit. But let's see if he can find that 2.5 tenths.
It's his final attempt as well, so it's do or die for Trepignet. 1:18.8, he will improve once again, but he will stay in third. The top 3 split by under a 10th and a half of a second. Still Gonzalo Cortez with an opportunity to go even faster, as he'll be one of the final cars to throw a lap time on the board here, but for Conor Wagner in that hard point by Delta Sport car that missed the race 7 days ago, looking good to start from the point as the 09 Porsche sweeps through the final corner.
Solid red car, always easy to point out, and Gonzalo Cortez is always aggressive, so look for him to move forward, but he might not even move forward much because he is still going to stay P4. The lap times have changed so much that I was thinking that a 1:18.8 would be good enough for pole, but no, it's not, because Conor Wagner found some more lap time.
And we've been so focused on the pros because of how fascinating that Q fight was, we've ignored the AMs, and let's not pretend it's not exciting. Bergstrom will jump into third in AM behind Ryan Patrick by only about a 10th and a half of a second, but it's Rob Campbell that will have 6 cars between him and his next competitor. The AM class pole position winner is up in 15th spot.
More speed for Rob Campbell. That's the consistent thing we've seen this season. We got some surprises up at the top of Pro, but Rob Campbell has been the class of the field in qualifying. He's had some bad luck in the races, though, so there's a lot of bad luck in the fixed race earlier. Rob Campbell's hoping it doesn't strike him.
You say bad luck, I say the nature of this Pro versus Am separation, but mixing on track. But we're ready to go for the second part of our doubleheader, and it was chaos earlier for the fixed series. With a close margin in qualifying, what does the GT3 Sprint Series have in store for this Tuesday night GT3 action? Let's run you down through the starting grid for round 4, a full pace lap, so of course we have plenty of time to scroll our way through. It's Connor Wagner in the hardpoint by Delta Sport car, that 57 that puts it on pole, a good omen for them as they build to what is a very important weekend. Diego Morales on his outside, a 10th off the pace, sits second in the points, and with Sean Campbell missing, the opportunity to grab the checkered flag stands in front. Vincent Trepanier right behind his championship rival, with Gonzalo Cortez rounding out the front 4. Mitchell Ian Green and Drew Becker share row number 3. Martin Crisp in the Porsche for SimCity Racing that lines up 7th, with Joshua Lawrence for company. Alex Caruso in the hardpoint by Delta Sport Academy 89 sees Demas Jr. for the We Race Esports 34 for company. Sean Dickinson in the BMW finds himself alongside a Porsche, with Ted Lowendick and Alessandro Puotti 13th and 14th. A little bit shocking to see the Leo Racing team, number 61, all the way back on the outside of row number 7. It's Rob Campbell, the AM-class pole, that lines up 15th, with Nick McLaughlin on his outside. Ryan Pucktel and Arnaud Guinness 17th and 18th, while bookending the top 10, it's Dave Menino in the Porsche for SRT Esports, with Caven Norris on his right-hand side. Thomas Dunn and Ryan Patrick 21st and 22nd. We find our second of the AM-class cars on the outside of row 11. The Mercedes for Alex Bergstrom, the third AM car inside of Justin Rector, the BMW Pro, with Eric Dubé sharing row 13, with Vincent Sepulveda in the Final Lap Racing 248. Blake Ziti in the Long Island Racing Team, number 50, will line up 27th, with Caleb Lehman alongside. Turner Schroll and David Van Roy complete the top 30. We'll scroll through the rest of the names and we'll watch out for any big surprises, but I mean, other than the Leo Racing Team machine of Alessandro Puotti maybe being outside of where we'd normally expect to see him, Joey, par for the course, I think, in qualifying.
Other than Connor Wagner, I agree. Mostly par for the course, but of course there's the big loss at the head of the field. I kind of feel like SpongeBob when Gary ran away. I hope Sean Campbell can come back. We were kind of rooting for somebody to beat him, but now that he's gone, I miss our buddy Sean Campbell. I hope he's back next week to keep up his dominance. And also I will give a shout out to Mark Kalin, who has done an interesting strategy of starting from the back of the field and not qualifying, because he thinks there's going to be some calamity on the opening laps and he wants to avoid it, and that is very understandable because Mark Kalin has had the worst start to this PRL season of anybody ever, I think. He runs in like 4 series, and I think there's been like 2 races where he hasn't been hit by somebody.
I was going to say he probably watched the race earlier. We do have a number of cars, I think, electing to start from pit lane. Was a bit surprised that Miguel Fonseca, the AM-class championship leader, elected not to put in a qualifying lap, but I think that was mainly just because he has decided to start from pit lane. Alan Roth and Keith Bonilla will also elect to roll from the safety of pit lane. Sean Campbell has his racing driver excuses ready, of course, Joey, telling us that he is setting up a new computer.
Does that mean he's going to be even more difficult to beat in the coming weeks? We saw him on his single monitor last week, so is Sean Campbell about to be in like a full motion rig or something? Is he about to go like Iron Man or some other reference that isn't proprietary?
I don't want to think about that, let's be real. We know it's not about the equipment. The equipment does not make the driver, but it would be nice if we didn't have to deal with that. You can see the field stacking up as they work their way through the corkscrew. Again, we have, yes, 3 cars starting from pit lane, but another 45 cars, Joey, ready to go here at the WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. So it's Connor Wagner that gets us ready to go racing for round 4 of this Precision Racing League GT3 Sprint Series. It's been a difficult start for the hardpoint by Delta Sport 57, but today he can make a statement. And as the green flag flies, he gets us underway, and immediately while he jumps, Morales has to block Trepanier. They fight 3 wide inside of the top 5. This start much more chaotic than what we had earlier tonight. Trepigny searching for an outside groove. He'll hold third as to fourth goes Mitchell. Ian Green, a big stack up further back through the field. The likes of Marc-André Desjardins and Blake ZT getting mixed up in that one, but at the front of the field, the pros storm away as Proti goes into the wall.
Quote, got turned across somebody's nose. I didn't see who it was, but all the calamity was actually at the back of the field. I think Mark Kalin made it through, though, so his decision to go to the back of the field might have ended in disaster with everybody wrecking back there, but I think he did make it through. Quote, got turned by somebody, though. We'll have to identify who the culprit was.
I get the sense there's probably about 15 different things all going on in once there, and so we will pick them up at some point, but at least for now, it is through the corkscrew and aggressive from Morales. 3 wide for a moment. Cortez will slide to the podium. Ian Green down to 6th. And they're not hanging around on the opening lap as Ian Green tries to fight with Martin Crisp.
Martin Crisp threw it off the road a little bit there. That let Caruso get through, and now Mitchell Ian Green is off. Everybody is just trying to get there, get some semblance of control, and Morales dives it in and takes out Mitchell Ian Green.
Yeah, and that's probably going to be a slam dunk penalty, if you have to say. In fact, that might not have been Morales. That might have been Dimas Jr. to correct you there, Joey. Not often that you're wrong in this Precision Racing League, but that was the one occasion. It will be Dickinson in the SimCity BMW. That's now up 5 positions into 6th. And I tell you what, a second race, a second crazy start. And Joey, you thought the Sprint Series would have less to offer us. I present to you lap number 1.
Those We Race Esports cars painted exactly the same, so it's always difficult to see which one is actually the one we need to blame. And Gonzalo Cortez now, we know that was him. Little bit of a bumper there through turn 4. I think that's Nick McLaughlin who's fallen through the field now. Drew
Becker in the 215 is the one that's sliding backwards. Once again, I don't even know where to look. Ryan Patrick, through some of this, though, is caught right onto the back of Rob Campbell. And once again, for the AM-class leaders, there is contention. And my word, chaos and carnage out of turn number 6. They go scampering for the hills. Tommy Bresson takes the tow back to pit lane. I have no idea who else got mixed up in that one.
Neither do I, and I've been 0 for 2. And Mark Kalin, no.
I think we're going to have to go full screen replay at this point. I don't even think we can dissect all of this in the side-by-side carnage. My word. Yeah. Sometimes you just don't have words to describe some of the things that you see.
And sometimes every single driver that goes off is in a similar livery to their teammates, so it's always hard to identify who. But we know for sure that a few of these drivers. But this is what happened in turn 1. This is what kicked it all off. A fairly small accident, though.
Yeah, it just all stacks itself up, and it's the accordion effect, and I think it's more just bumper cars being played across the board there. That's what happened to Desjardins. And then, of course, it was I think the more subsequent thing that happened with Blake ZT, because he lost a whole bunch of time. Fortunately, no damage. Then let's see if we can figure out what happened with that man, because he was the big shot right here.
That's Ted Lowendick to his outside, and I gotta say, I can't blame Ted for that. Puoti just came over a little bit to the left, and there was very much a car there. I don't know if he has a spotter here at Laguna Seca, but if he did, he probably was not quite clear there. This is the calamity that went down with Dimas Ometo Jr., not Diego Morales. Just dives it in, tries to take advantage of the huge checkup, and dives in a little bit too hard. There was a car there.
Yeah, slam dunk. 2 words once again that I will again use. Cortez then once again has gotten involved in plenty of fighting. Bit of the bumper to Drew Becker as they worked through the corner. My word. Continuing to kick off here as, yeah, Dubé, Carmody, Rector. The real question is who isn't involved in something, and it's basically just those at the front of the field. Wagner, Trepigny, 1 second between them. Morales, then 2.5 back with Dimas Jr. 3 seconds further back in what has been a very, very clumsy day today here.
And Nick McLaughlin got into an incident as well, so it's been a bad day to be a lunatic driver. Josh Lawrence, though, in that Vector by RSR car, he's another driver who's been completely clean. He's been in the epicenter of all the incidents, and somehow he's avoided all of it, and he's advanced quite a few spots from his qualifying position, I believe, and he's actually outperforming the big squad, the Vector by RSR squad, or the RSR by Butt Kicker squad, rather, with Ted Lowendick right behind him.
I will say I do not want to be a steward this week, that is for sure, because they will be working overtime here today. Vincent Sepulveda, the latest in those to take the toe to pit lane. Blake Ziti, Caven Norris, Tommy Brissone, Gonzalo Cortez, Nick McLaughlin, Sepulveda. Those are the cars that have taken the toe. Lawrence is going to be diving to pit lane. Drew Becker has already made the trip to pit lane. And I wonder if this is a call from the 55 machine to say, you know what, with so many cars having issues, maybe I can come in and get stuff sorted right now.
If he can go 35 minutes on one tank of fuel, I mean, that would be pretty surprising, but that would be a great strategy call. Let's see if he brings it down. No, it's a drive-through. Has he hit 13 incident points already?
Already?
That doesn't seem possible because he's been,
well,
I think, completely clean for the first 5 minutes.
To be fair,
unless he jumped the start.
No, they have been playing bumper cars, so there's only so much that you can do in some of these situations if you really are trying to stay out of harm's way. So we will see if we can figure out what happened in that big one, because there was a humongous incident that we saw out of turn number 6, and I think that is the one that has really claimed the majority of those that are currently stuck down on pit lane. Here is, I believe, that replay, and it's Tommy Brissone that just runs wide, and no time to react for basically anyone here.
And that's what happened to Caven Norris and Nick McLaughlin. Those two are finally diagnosed. No contact for Josh Lawrence, though, so I don't think that finds as a 4X for him, but Tommy Brissone, turn 6, strikes in a whole new way. He actually hops the curb, completely unsettles the Porsche, and will ride on board with Nick McLaughlin here. There's nowhere to go. There's a Frisbee in front of you, and it just lands on you.
Yeah. Very much empathize with those cars mixed up, and by the same token, Tommy Brissone does nothing wrong in that situation. Miguel Fonseca trying to just secure some points in this race. Actually coming out a couple of laps down. I think there may have been a technical issue for him that has seen him late in this one. Ryan Patrick has gotten in front of Rom Campbell. That is what we are watching, by the way, in our AM class battle. They are almost, though, inside of the top 10, illustrating that just because you're in the AM class, Joey, doesn't mean you are not a quick driver.
We saw Patrick and McLaughlin and a few others advance into the top 10, but the action never stops. The action will never stop for an anecdote, especially if you're a BMW. It seems like they've got the worst luck tonight.
Yeah. It's one of those days, isn't it? When it rains, it pours. Both for the drivers and for race control. So here we go from up above into turn 1. Oh. There's just been a lot of things that have been clumsy here today.
Laguna Seca kind of attracts the clumsiness, unfortunately, because it's so difficult to pass. You try and go for doors that aren't necessarily open there. We'll ride on board with Caleb Lehman as he does just peek to the inside, but yeah, that was clumsy. That's a perfect word for it. Just kind of drives into the back of the Mercedes of David Morrison, turns him around there. Just like you said, clumsy. And the stewards will have a lot of work to do, but I will explain this for the people at home who don't know. The Precision Racing League operates on a sort of reported incident system. The stewards aren't watching this race and looking for every incident to issue out penalties. If you are somebody who believes they were wronged in an incident, you go onto the forums, you report the driver, you send a replay, and that is how drivers will get their penalties. So there might be a lot of reports coming in after tonight.
Just a few, I would wager. Check in with Ted Lowendick, the only RSR by Butt Kicker entry here today, as he sees behind him Arnaud Guinest fighting for 8th overall, 8th in class as it were as well. Into the corkscrew they'll go again. We'll look at this quite terrifying background for Ted Lowendick. You said there was a story here, Joey. Now, have I given you enough time to go and dig it up?
No, because I did dig it up, but I found the dear. Well, Alex Caruso's got more important things to do.
Every time we try. It's now Caruso in that hardport by Delta Sport Academy, number 89, that does the right thing and waits for a safe time to rejoin. Might even drop now out of the top 20 if he's not careful. My word. My word. What is it? Okay, I've been calling it the best coast. Is this just my punishment for trying to be excited about coming to my home track?
Yes.
Okay, I see. I see what the iRacing gods are doing. I see. Let's take a look here. And again, I think it's just by himself. Rear-ended Porsche. We talked about one of the difficulties, some of the difficulties that some of these different cars will experience. And, well, we're getting an exhibition of weight transfer on display.
Physicists, if you're watching, University of Southern California, these are good demonstrations to show in your classes. He barely even clips the curb, but that's just enough to unsettle the car. You need to know when to expect those, but even if you do know when to expect those, when you know when the weight transfer is going to happen in this Porsche, it still manages to find ways to surprise you. And that's what happens. Even if you're Alex Caruso, who's having a great day in the top 7, and he's in a hard point by Delta Sport Porsche, which we know is going to have a pretty good setup on it.
Yeah, and I mean, like I was mentioning, big week for Hardpoint by Delta Sport as they get ready to begin their IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship campaign this Sunday in a Porsche 911 GT3R, of course, a week after Sunday, so next Sunday, as it were, the teams and drivers head back here. So if they got a good setup, that is very much going to be something they want. And of course, Conor Wagner not really factoring in the championship mix, at least as it sits right now. The one that it will be smiling the most. Yes, Sean Campbell is not around and Vincent Trepinier is not on the top step of the podium. But at the very least, he's maximizing championship points over Diego Morales.
And Sean Campbell will be back unless he has to build another computer in the coming weeks. He won't have 2 off weeks. So, yeah, he'll still be able to fight for the championship. But Trepinier wants to take advantage of every opportunity he can get. If there are a sequence of races coming up where Sean Campbell gets taken out by a lap car like the dominant champion Guillaume Levesque did in this series last season, you need to take advantage of all of those points just to stay in contention. And Trepinier is keeping Conor Wagner quite a bit of company here. He's not going to let Wagner run away with this. He wants to win this race. He wants to get a win on the table, and he wants that maximum 37 points for a win and leading the most laps.
Talk about weather conditions very quickly, because once again it is cool, but it is in the morning here, just south of the San Francisco area. You go about a 90-minute drive down the coast, and you land at the picturesque Monterey, and then you find yourself cruising into this facility. Fighting for 4th, Dimas Jr., not for the first time today, getting involved. And he will escort Sean Dickinson wide, who now loses out to Martin Crisp, at least a teammate in the SimCity stable. But Dimas Jr. really not making any friends out on track today.
Not making any friends, really. Do you ever make friends in racing at Laguna Seca? But certainly Dimas Ometo Jr. has been having a worse day than some. This is what happened to the corkscrew. There's your Romain Grosjean moment. It finally happened between the 2 BMWs of Turner Schroll and one of the SRT Esport drivers in front of him. I think that's David Morrison, the 27. But that's just picture perfect, exactly the same move.
The 111, it's Christopher Rhines, and I think maybe just damage. And this is important when it comes to the Hardpoint by Delta Sport team in that team championship in the AM class, because Turner Schroll now not scoring points for the rest of this one. So we overuse the phrase championship implications as commentators, but that is definitely one that will raise some eyebrows. In the stables, Trepinier deep under the brakes, but look how much he's closed within 3 car lengths. Into the brakes, into turn number 1. Conor Wagner starting to feel the pressure as we near the halfway mark of this 40-minute sprint.
Trepinier's kept the pressure on all season on Sean Campbell, and now he's got a new driver to kind of force into a mistake. Conor Wagner is not a driver who makes mistakes very often. We saw the full brunt of that in the F3 series last season, where he won 8 out of 10 races. Actually, 8 out of 9 races. He didn't show up for the last race because he had the championship clinched already, and he also couldn't make it in the first place. But he's not a driver that makes mistakes in any sort of car. But Trepinier's got the pass. He might just have to make this pass completely clean.
David Van Roy and Sean Carmody within the AM class fight for 8th within their respective grouping. Porsche versus Porsche battle sees the blue and red charge its way forward. Nicely done. 24th now in the overall classification. Still, by the way, Ryan Patrick leads in this Lunatic Racing number 18 machine. He's 1.8 clear of Rob Campbell, who again, after putting it towards the front in qualifying, finds himself at least comfortably running in 2nd with 6 cars between him and Alex Bergstrom. Then you go back to 4th, and Brett Thurman, who sees in his rearview mirrors the likes of Pete Newhook, Darren Rothford, and Marc-André Deschardins, as we look on board with the focus on Pete Newhook's face.
Always a big fan of that patchwork Porsche that Peter Newhook brings out every week. It looks like a nice quilt, very, very comfortable, and he looks very, very comfortable there in his basement. He's got the drums in the background. Always good to see inside where the drivers are racing. Gives us some context.
Yeah, I always like comparing the different setups. Like you said, we saw Sean Campbell single monitor, even in top-level VCO competitions like Esports Racing League, Kazuki Umeshima, who is a former iRacing Grand Prix World Championship Series driver, still races on a single screen, as now lap traffic plays a factor. Wagner tags the back of a BMW. And that's now David Morse in the 27 car. But crucially, Connor Wagner has had to dive to pit lane and has then had further contact with the BMW.
I don't know what happened between when we saw Wagner get into the back of Morse and when he got sandwiched into the pit wall there.
He had significant steering damage. Sorry to cut you off there, Joey, but when there's the story to tell, let's not dilly-dally around. And poor Connor Wagner did everything perfect until that moment. Maybe forcing the issue a bit, yes, lap traffic not helping him out. But that will be day done for the hard point by Delta Sport number 57. Just not enough steering lock to get it through the corner.
No, not enough steering lock to get it through, and unfortunately things go from bad to worse for David Morse there, but things can't get worse for Sean Campbell. It was just the barest of contact. I didn't think he would destroy the front end of that Porsche. It was just that little bit of contact, but that's the way it flips sometimes. Floyd Kerr got away with that in the fixed race earlier with no damage, and Connor Wagner gets completely destroyed. Well, let's watch here what David Morse did. I think he tried to get out of the way there. He lifted, and then he got back, and then he's just trying to figure out where to go, and it just did not work out at all for Connor Wagner.
So I think it looks worse than it really is because the contact between the Porsche and the BMW spins the BMW slightly to the right. I don't think the BMW is trying to cover the inside as maybe those pictures suggested. It's just unfortunate, and it shows how difficult that a track like this, traffic rather, can truly be. And then imagine what it's like when the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship comes here, Joe, and you've got LMP2 cars trying to work their way past GT3s.
That's going to get even more wild, and that's not the end of the lap traffic tonight either. Vincent Trepanier, he's got a 3-second gap now that Connor Wagner has been erased from the lead of this race, but the lap traffic never ends. It never ends.
Erase makes it sound so much more final as well. Bergstrom will get in front of Ton Fain, who will head down towards pit lane. So maybe the first indications that drivers think the pit lane sequence opens now as the O2 BMW hits his Martin will begin to top up on fuel. So now our podium. Top two steps relatively secure. Trepanier 3 seconds in front of Diego Morales, the two championship protagonists. Behind them, Dimas Jr., Martin Crisp, and Sean Dickinson find themselves in a three-way tussle for third.
These are the doors that open with attrition. You might get an unexpected podium. We haven't really talked about Dimas Jr. or Martin Crisp or Sean Dickinson necessarily this season as drivers who would be fighting for the podium. They've always been drivers who have been fighting for just below the podium, you know. Good top 5 results, high in the top 10, but they've got a shot to get a podium now, the podium that they really need in that really close fight for all those spots underneath Trepanier and Morales and Campbell for the lead in the championship. Every single point matters. It's a cliche, but it's always true.
Especially when I've commentated on championships where not just has it been tied, but the first tiebreaker has also been tied. So you go to the second tiebreaker and try and figure out, okay, can we finally figure out who won this championship? Every single point will matter. You can see some tire marks on the outside of turn 3 showing just how much drivers push the limit, partially aided by the fact that most of the curbing here is flat until you get to the sausage curbs. Of course, Laguna Seca is notorious in its local community because out of turn 5 there, as you work towards turn 6, there's that white cut. You saw it for just a moment that has no one in it except a microphone pointed directly at the cars as they climb up the hill in towards the corner. If they go over the noise threshold, an automatic alert is triggered, and you get sent to the naughty step, as it were. Basically, other than that, though, this is a fantastic racing facility for many types of race cars, Joey, as long as they're not too powerful.
I hope you and I haven't violated some kind of noise ordinance here tonight, because
Well,
it's certainly possible.
Yeah, my Apple Watch has at least warned me at least once tonight, is what I was trying to say.
Yeah, I've got people above me, and they might be getting a free PRL broadcast up there. Well, actually, everybody's getting a free PRL broadcast, but they're getting behind the scenes.
Ooh, wait, are you saying that RaceSpot doesn't have to pay you for PRL anymore?
The people who are watching get it for free, but I, for one, get paid $7,000 an hour.
I was going to say, like, we can save that $1 million a year just on Joey. To be fair, it's been a lot of fun having the PRL join us, and it's been fun having you join us as well. Halfway through this race, though, officially 40-minute sprint, 20 minutes in the books, 19 minutes still left to play. Still watching this fight for third. AM class sees the top two continuing to separate themselves. Ryan Patrick now 3 seconds clear of Rob Campbell. I was trying to figure out the nice way to bring this up at some point today, Joey, but it's a Porsche fest at the front.
Welcome to the PRL GT3 Sprint Series, everybody. It's the Porsche Challenge kind of this season. It was the Mercedes Challenge last season. Who knows what it'll be next season? Maybe it'll be a new car that we get, but this is very clearly the car that you want.
Ryan Patrick! The AM class leader has lost it on the exit down out of the corkscrew and through the penultimate corner as he tries to rejoin. He will be able to salvage second place, but what happened to his number 18?
It's the exact same place where we saw Connor Wagner get taken out of the overall lead. Did he get some help there? It doesn't look like there's anybody behind him who could have helped. That looks very much just like a natural spin.
He had 3 seconds, at least in terms of the next car he was fighting with. The Audi is so far behind. Pushes wide.
The grass.
Well, grass/gravel.
/sand, /desiccated
exactly.
dirt.
Yes, that's what I was really meaning. But such a cruel mistake, and how easy it is to happen as well.
And especially if you're on a single monitor. I don't know if Rob Campbell is, but you can lose kind of the depth perception of your own car, and that's why it's so easy to just look over or move over a little bit too far to clip that side of the track that we've seen so many drivers do. And Ryan Patrick just goes over a little bit too far. He's found the limit, and I think he probably won't find that limit again. He's probably going to be backing it off through turn 10 for the rest of the night.
Seems as though Dimas Jr. will get a bit of clean air in front as a lapped car will head to pit lane. Something else happened to Proti. We saw him stranded. Oh, yeah. Even though the engine's at the rear of that Porsche, that's probably day done.
That is probably day done, and he's not a championship contender, unfortunately. He could have been, but there's just been some bad luck in the first couple of seasons, so I don't know if he's going to come out and try and get every point he can like we saw Andrew Rasmussen do in the fixed race. But I would applaud him if he does come back out. You want to get every position you can, and there's still 16 minutes to go. Anything could happen.
Truly, anything can happen. David Van Roy will then pit from the AM class field, so getting more and more takers as we work through this race. Of course, remember, we follow the official iRacing GT Sprint VRS Series schedule, so these drivers have the benefit, if they choose, of using official series as practice for these races. But a league environment very different when you're fighting with the same faces week in and week out. Dimas Jr. has been able to build up some separation. Mitchell Ian Green's recovery drive continues as he'll get in front of Ryan Pucktel for what is inside of the top 10 in the pro class.
And he doesn't have any damage on the back of that car, or it doesn't look like there's much. He got a bumper from Dimas Ometo Jr. at turn 10, but it was low speed impact. We'll watch from the nose of Ryan Pucktel here to see if there is a little bit of crunkle on the back of that Porsche. There might be a little bit on the left side there, but other than that, completely damage-free for Mitchell Ian Green. He's a driver with a lot of speed. He's a driver who should be about 5 spots further up the order, maybe 7 spots further up the order than he is. He's got 15 minutes to do it, though. He's got a lot of cars to pass.
Of course, this Porsche 911 that is in vogue for 2022 Season 4 in this Precision Racing League GT3 Sprint Series is officially waved goodbye to now, with the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship in the book and many of the global GT3 championship races also having come to an end, and we'll get set for 2023 to say hello to the 911 GT3R 992.1. Which is going to be very exciting. Of course, the car has already broken ground, and the distinctive rear light bar that has become a fixture of the Porsche 911 Cup car that we have here on iRacing has made its way to this GT3 car. Be interesting to see just how it competes across of global motorsport. A car, of course, that will put up to 600 horsepower. Still, of course, not turbocharged. One of the last remaining Vanguard. So, Ian Green, his next target would be Menino, but 7 seconds the separation there once they work past Rob Campbell, who has been, I think it's fair to say, gifted the AM class lead once again. Ian Green, Pucktail, their next task will just be settle into groove and ride out these next 14 odd minutes, Joey.
He has been gifted the lead, but I think there's an important distinction to make between being gifted the lead like Vincent Trepanier has been gifted, where a lapped car came into it and there wasn't really anything Conor Wagner could do, and it was a mistake that Ryan Patrick made. So I think Rob Campbell will be pretty happy with this lead. It was a mistake from the driver in front of him, but now he's got to make sure he doesn't make that same mistake, because he can do exactly the same thing. He's in the same car. He has the same blind spots. He's going to the same turn 10. And there goes Mitchell Ian Green at turn 6.
They're all pushing, I tell you. They are pushing. Morales has lost some ground with lap traffic, by the way, so the gap for the race lead has grown to 4 full seconds as Vincent Trepanier looks set to take full advantage of Sean Campbell's 1-week vacation to secure maximum points in this Precision Racing League outing at the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Let's check back in with those outside of the podium fight in your AM class as Pete Newhook continues to defend from Darren Rutherford, with Marc-Andre Desjardins only about 3 seconds back, waiting to lurk and pounce if anything happens. Mitchell Ian Green, by the way, you got excited about a bit of a moment for him, Joey. He's down on pit lane.
Get excited for the start of the pit cycle, maybe taking advantage of that little bit of lost time. He already lost the time throwing it off the road in turn 6. Might as well take all of the losses at once in one big clump. He comes down pit lane. He's already exiting after a very, very short stop. And that should be the pit cycle kicking off. It's been 28 minutes. It's been quite a while. So you have to imagine the leaders are going to start thinking about coming down soon, but also they're extending it for as long as possible because there's no gaps on track. There's never been a gap on track for this entire race. So there's no reason to come in early, unfortunately.
So general rule of thumb, right, in GT3 is fuel can go for an hour. We have 50% fuel tanks, and yes, the rule is not hard and dry, so sometimes you will go a lot shorter than an hour, but here, with 50% fuel tanks and a full formation lap, surely we are on the cusp of everyone down to pit lane. Crisp and Dickinson in the SimCity racing cars, the Porsche and the BMW will come to the lane. Our sidebar butt kicker sends Ted Lowendick for a trip to get some fuel as well. The pit window is well and truly open.
See if either of those AM drivers will like to come in, but these are the numbers you need to remember. Ted Lowendick will probably have a lower fuel number than anybody else. If we know those RSR by butt kicker drivers and those fuel strategies, he's going to leave his box after 9.9 seconds, about the same as Dickinson, 10.3 seconds. Crisp a little bit shorter, but that's around the time to expect. So if there's any outliers from that, hopefully there aren't. It looks like everybody's basically been running the same strategies. I haven't been seeing any aggressive fuel saving from anybody. So there shouldn't be much shuffling on pit lane, except if you're pretty close, like Arnaud Genet and Dave Menino are, for example.
So will we see your leader down this time by as we get set to hit 10 to go? He pulls to the left, tricky pit entry, but Vincent Trepanier navigates it without too much difficulty. Morales follows him in as well, so here we go. Trips down pit lane. We're about to see where the strategy game will cycle everyone and what we're in for these final 10 minutes in terms of a dash to the checkered flag. Always important. Sorry, go ahead, Joey.
Quick update on Mitchell Ian Green. While these guys are sitting in their pit stalls, he didn't actually pit there. He wasn't taking advantage of the lost time. He got an incident point going off there, and he got his drive-through.
So, not the first time tonight we've seen that bite. Diego Morales, 8.7 seconds in pit lane. 1 full second quicker than Vincent Trepanier. The gap will be brought down to just around 2 seconds, And with Morales being a little bit tidier than Terrafino was earlier in the night, the fight for the race lead is well and truly still on.
Got 10 minutes to find pace in that car. He's been just a little bit faster every single lap than Vincent Trepanier, like 0.2 or so, but it hasn't been consistent. The gap has stayed basically the same because he lost it, and then he gained it back, and then he lost it, and then he gained it back. But we'll see if he has anything left in the tank here in the last 10 minutes. And the gap has been almost cut in half, probably cut in about a third. He's only got 2.5 seconds to make up.
And as we look at third, notice that the undercut worked a treat for Martin Crisp in the 9:54. Yes, it was a lot shorter of a pit stop than what it was for Dimas Jr. 8.9 to 11 seconds, but with track position being so important, has Martin Crisp done what he needed to do to grab a podium here at Laguna Seca? Traffic potentially an issue into the corkscrew. The fight for third is the one to watch.
Mark Kalin shouldn't be too much of a worry up there. He's had enough bad luck this season. He's had enough things not go his way that I think he's probably thinking about the best thing he can do for other drivers to not give them even more of his own bad luck. Through the final corner, he's not going to hold up Martin Crisp very much. Crisp is going to catch him in a very, very optimal place, and Kalin's going to pull over to the side here, let him and Dimas and probably even Sean Dickinson by as well. And you can also see Mitchell Ian Green in the background finally taking his legit pit stop, and he's probably going to fall all the way back to where he was before he got spun around by Dimas, or after he got spun around, rather.
To your point on Mark Kalin, remember he tried to not qualify to stay out of danger's way, and it still just managed to find him. So just one of those days, unfortunately. Dickinson separated from this grouping for third, so it is now a two-horse race for the final step of the podium. Porsche, 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 Porsche. Inside of the top 11, there is only one non-Porsche. It is that BMW of Sean Dickinson. It would be nice to have a nice mix. We have a bit more of a mix, it's fair to say, in the AMs, although it's Rob Campbell that leads there in a Porsche from Ryan Patrick, in a Porsche, and then Alec Bergstrom in the Mercedes, the third step of the podium in that AM class. Alex Caruso has had another moment off the track. It's not been an easy day for so many competitors, and you talked about how difficult the Porsche was going to be here, Joey. It seems like sometimes commentators do know what we're talking about.
Only sometimes. We only know about when cars are difficult to drive, but we can't seem to find the actual speed out of them. But let's see what happened to Alex Caruso here. Everything's straightforward, trying to chase down Rob Campbell. They aren't actually fighting for position, and there it is. Same thing we've seen all day. With that Porsche blind spot, you just move over a little bit too far to the left. You barely stick the tire on the mysterious beige substance that we can't identify on the outside of the track, and it loops it around. It's happened so many times. He's going to try and recover on a dive on Thomas Dunn here. A little bit too far back, though.
Had another issue for Pete Newhook here. I'm not sure exactly what happened to him, to be completely fair, because he was in a little bit of no man's land, and there's some cone murder on the run down to turn number one as Caruso escorts those cones into the air and then escorts Thomas Dunn out of 11th spot, 10th in class. Ryan Patrick, the AM class second place driver, will be next in line with not too much, I'm sure, to push for. But with 6 minutes to go, it's intensifying at the back, it's stagnating at the front, with Trepanier building the advantage to Morales to over 3.5 seconds with 6 minutes to go.
The lap car's still not working out for Diego. The BMW is going to not get out of the way like Mark Kalin did. He's going to fight this as much as he possibly can. But let's see what happened to Peter Newhook. Is it going to be exactly the same thing, just on the exit of a different corner? Yep. Good save, though. Good correction there to not back it into the tire wall, and a good save to not back it into the concrete wall as well. He's still going to lose a ton of time, but he kept it out of the walls, and that's something that not every Porsche has been able to do tonight.
Yeah, he was able to avoid doing what Proti ended up doing, which was spinning it directly into the wall. We check in with 7th spot now, because there is a fight here with Guinness, Menino, all ensconced in this battle with one another. Lowendick, of course, 6 seconds separated from Sean Dickinson, so with time running out, these drivers know what they're fighting for.
Good word there, ensconced. I'm gonna have to bring that into my own vocabulary. Genet peeks it to the inside of Lowendick. He knows there's 5 minutes to go, but that's not a place where you can really go for a move at turn 5. That almost always ends in disaster. Up through turn 6, though, Ted Lowendick is not shook whatsoever by the... Oh, dear. Somebody in front of him is.
Sean Dickinson is off the road, and I tell you what, this fight suddenly becomes for a spot inside the top 5. That's physical from Menino, and I tell you that maybe he'll think about redressing the position, but the ASR number 312 unable to do so. Lowendick able to scamper away. Now, what happened to Dickinson, and why is he continuing to drop down? He's in pit lane, so whatever happened, it's terminal enough that he needed the tow to pit lane.
If it happened at turn 6, most likely it will be terminal. And then a little bit of argy-bargy between Menino, but we'll see that in a second. There it is, turn 6, outside, in the sand, /gravel, /dirt, /whatever. It's hard to save that in a big old BMW. He went really, really far wide. I wonder if he clipped the curb on the inside. No, didn't hit the sausage, just a little bit too far. Got in that rut, tried to get off of it, jerked it off too hard, and then slammed into the concrete wall on the inside. And then Menino and Genet here was unrelated, but the worst thing to happen is the fact that Menino sent it to the inside of the chief road steward in the PRL. So you don't want to hit him.
Yes, I'm trying to understand how that meeting with the stewards review board would go, and I only see it going a couple of ways. So Lowendick, Menino, 5th, 6th in front of the Arnaud Guinness 312. Not really expecting any fights on the podium anymore now. Martin Crisp 1.7 clear of Dimas Jr., so he's been able to relieve himself of any sort of pressure. In the AM class, Campbell, Patrick, Bergstrom separated from the rest of their competitors. But then, inside of the AM field, we got a 3-car fight. Carmody, Newhook, Rector still squabbling with 3 minutes to go.
There's never an absence of battles for position on the track here. Peter Newhook on his recovery drive after recovering that spin. Justin Rector also, unfortunately, hasn't had the best day so far today. He was very, very quick at Road Atlanta last week. Got into the back of a few drivers, but was very, very quick in the process of doing so. Unfortunately, fighting with Peter Newhook here for about 20th on track. He's going to send it to the inside. Newhook's going to let him get away with that because it's Pro versus AM, and Newhook's actually going to let another driver by. I think that was Desjardins, who just kind of snuck through there.
Yeah, I think it was a lapped car. Don't think it's really an issue as we check in back with turn 5 and this grouping just outside of the top 5. It's still Guinness and Menino that will battle. Lowendick still somewhat separated, and as they work themselves into the corkscrew, Trepanier will cross the line with 2 minutes and 15 seconds to go. So we have 2 laps still left to go in Tuesday Night GT3 for the PRL.
Genet really wants to repay the favor on Menino. He really wants to, I think, surprise him on the last lap, potentially. Send it to the inside of the corkscrew again, get him back for that. But he wasn't able to do it that time, wasn't quite close enough. Through the final corner, I thought he might be close enough for a dive. He is very, very close. The draft isn't going to be super effective here on the front straight. It's a short front straight. These cars aren't especially draft heavy in the first place, but he is closing it down a little bit. He's going to peek to the inside, maybe to force Menino offline. And he is actually going to peek to the inside again in the middle of the corner, but he has to back out of it. Menino squeezed him. He was closing the door. Genet's going to have to find another place to get by.
The corner does cut back, but you've got to be careful with lunges at that point. Very easy to put yourself in a lose-lose situation. So, a minute 20 to go. Lowendick has been able to give himself the breathing room that I think he will need. Here, though, is the race leader. It's 4 seconds back to Diego Morales, and even though there's traffic in front of Vincent Trepanier, the reality is, Joey, that this final trip around the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca will feel like a drive down the Californian coast.
And he doesn't even have to pass Justin Rector or Sean Carmody here. He can just hang out behind him. He can just run a little parade lap here for the next 54 or 1 minute and 20 seconds or whatever before the timer runs out. Rector and Carmody are going to fight for this position, though, which I'm sure is very, very scary for Vincent Trepanier. Rector's going to get around, and Carmody's going to get out of the way as well. So that was resolved very quickly. But if you're the leader and you see cars going side by side ahead of you, that's going to be pretty terrifying.
So here's your AM class leader, Rob Campbell, with Ryan Pucktel right behind. Now remember, Pro versus AM, the 93 could very well just let Pucktel slide on through, but it's bragging rights up for play here. Won't want to give this one up without a fight. And And that's a very wide line from Pucktel. As we look back in with Lowendick and Menino, you'll see that the ASR 312 has been dropped. It's now Menino that's looking forward and trying to put some pressure onto Lowendick in these closing stages, but it's unlikely to be enough because time is running out, and time has run out to see who would come out on top. When Sean Campbell was the notable omission from the entry list, the question became which championship protagonist would take full advantage. Trepigny and Morales came into this one separated by 1 point, and while they'll be separated by 1 position, it will be Vincent Trepigny that stops the streak of Sean Campbell in the Precision Racing League GT3 Sprint Series.
Trying to think of it. Does it technically stop the streak because he wasn't here? I'm not entirely sure. But
He didn't win the race.
That's true.
Martin Crisp will grab the final step of the podium, but it was very close in the dying depths of this race. Demas Jr. pushing him all the way to the line. Ted Lowendick in front of Menino and Gane, 5th, 6th, 7th at the very end. I'm still counting it as breaking the streak. However, we still have to break the record of 100% for Sean Campbell.
Yes, the streak is broken, but Sean Campbell is still undefeated. The streak exists in abstract, as it is apart from Sean Campbell. But I want to compliment his teammate though, Ted Lowendick, because he advanced like 10 spots in this race at a place where it's hard to pass. So well done, Ted, and hopefully you have TeamSpeak installed. Come talk to us.
He's +8. Menino +12, Gane +10. Lowendick does have TeamSpeak installed because I've talked to him during some of the Ivor competitions. Again, just a reminder, if you are a driver tuning in and deciding where to go, technical issues, join us on TeamSpeak, ts.RaceSpotTV. We'll wait for the cars to complete their laps. Still final stragglers yet to come across the line, but again, another chaotic race. With 40+ cars here at the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, the expectation was for the carnage, but maybe not expecting how much we truly got. It is Trepigny that will grab a hold of the victory here in round 4 in 2022 season 4, the 87, 4 seconds clear of Diego Morales at the end of this race. Martin Crisp able to grab the final step of the podium using the undercut to his advantage, with Demas Jr. having to go to the steward's office with all things said and done. Ted Lowendick, he gains 8 positions. Dave Menino +12, Arnaud Gane +10, while your AM class winner, Rob Campbell, finishes 8th overall. Ryan Pucktel and Alex Caruso will complete the top 10, while behind them, it's Thomas Dunn and Mitchell Ian Green who recovers at the very least up to 12th overall, while Ryan Patrick and Alec Bergstrom complete the AM class podium. It'll be Tom Fane in 15th, while Brett Thurman, Darren Rutherford, Marc-Andre Desjardins, and David Van Roy, the AM class drivers, 16th through 19th. Justin Rector in 20th, while behind them it's the likes of Sean Carmody, Peter Newhook, Mark Kalin, Christopher Rines, Eric Dubé, Corey Precker, and Nathan Deering. And then we start to head into those that had plenty of issues, including Sean Dickinson, Miguel Fonseca, Nick McLaughlin, as well as Alessandro Puotti and our pole winner Connor Wagner, who was doing so well until things were turned on its head in a moment with lap traffic. We'll scroll through the rest of the names. We'll wait for the drivers to come and join us, Joey, but my oh my, you weren't expecting much from tonight. I think this was your just desserts.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting much of a race up front, but that was the real surprise. You know, the calamity, the chaos, that can happen sometimes in a field this big, but I wasn't expecting good racing up front, and we had very, very good racing up front with Terrafino and Andres Espinoza in the fixed race. That was a great well, weren't quite side-by-side, but they were close for the entirety of the race. Connor Wagner versus Vincent Trepigny was shaping up to be a great race before that got ended. Laguna Seca, you know, it surprised us tonight.
It did indeed, and I tell you what, we won't dilly-dally around with any post-race coverage here. Let's dive straight into it, and Ted Lowendick does indeed have TeamSpeak installed, and it's like he was waiting for an opportunity to chat with Joey Tebbin. So let's talk to the RSR by Butt Kicker driver that finished in 5th spot.
Well, Ted, you made me look stupid tonight because you put on your bathing cap, you put your ducks on yourself. I know that's a reference to something that happened last season, but that was a race where I wasn't on the broadcast, so I don't know the reference. Ted Lowendick, do you have a copy? He's had audio issues in the past. We'll wait to see if he can sort that out. Give him a couple seconds.
We'll give him a couple of seconds. I tell you what, while we wait, we'll have a quick look at the schedule and we'll talk about what's coming up, because we're hoping to be talking to a couple of our drivers here. But of course, after a couple of races back in the US of A, it's our European road trip. First, a trip to Snetterton in the UK, then over to the Spanish coast and the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, and then a trip to one of the newest tracks on iRacing. We head to Oschersleben, hoping for less Turn 1 chaos than other series have experienced.
Definitely hoping for less Turn 1 chaos. I'll quickly go through every single one of these races. Snetterton, there's been good races in the PRL there in the past, specifically in the GT3s. Barcelona, always a tough place to pass. It's tough to pass at Laguna Seca, though. We got proved wrong there. Oschersleben, tough to pass, but a new track. That'll open up the door. Coda, the widest track in the history of the world. There's got to be good passing there. Suzuka, built for F1 cars, still good for GT3s. Rudskogen, the Monaco of Norway. It's going to be hard to pass, but it'll be a great race. And if that doesn't sell the rest of the season for you, what will?
All right, well, we've given him a few minutes to try and fix those audio issues. Let's see if Joey Tebbett is finally ready to be joined by Ted Lowendick.
Use your words, Ted. Can we hear you now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
There we go. We got you now. The power of technology. So I'm gonna repeat my righteous indignation. You made me look stupid tonight because your Zoom background, you got your bathing cap on, you got your rubber duckies. That was the thumbnail of the top 10 moments at GSRC last season, but I wasn't on that PRL broadcast when you did that, so I don't know what it's a reference to.
We were at Bathurst, and I'm trying to be in a bath. I don't know. I was having fun. I will say those goggles were tinted, and I couldn't see a dang thing out of them, so it was a lot of fun.
So why'd you bring him to Laguna Seca? This is the opposite of a bath, because it's a dry lake.
Well, I really didn't have any good ideas for this one, so I thought, why not have a giant Ted over my shoulder with a couple of little ducks and ask questions and confuse you guys. So I think it might have worked a little bit, but
I think it did succeed quite a bit. I will talk to you about the race, because I guess I kind of have to do that.
That's fair.
Again, 8 spots up.
Yep.
You didn't get taken out.
Nope.
Basically, everybody else in the field did. How did you avoid all the carnage, except with Puoti trying to clear himself on you on lap 1?
So was that my fault? Because I feel really bad. I thought I was as far left as I could be. He sent me a message mid-race. I don't think he's very happy about it. So sorry. I'll go back and look at the.
At least from our perspective, it looked like he moved over on you. But I don't know. That's for the stewards. That's for them to figure out if they send it in.
Whew. All right. I won't worry too much about it then. For now, at least. No. My teammate out-qualified me, and he was having a really good race, and then he got a slowdown penalty, and then someone hit him while he was trying to slow down. Excuse me. And so that's why he was going down the pit lane. So I passed him when he was in the pits. I passed a couple people off track, dodged some wrecks, and got a P5 out of it, and I'm as shocked as you guys are, because I didn't expect this kind of finish, so...
All right, well, congrats on P5 tonight, and we look forward to Snetterton next week, because I know you have some British paraphernalia around in the house that you can break out for that.
I do. Be ready. So we'll see what we have.
We're ready. We're ready for that, Arjuna, and we're ready for Mark Kalin too, who has joined us after another race where it seemed like nothing has gone right for you in the PRL this season. Mark, you tried to start from the pits, you tried to stay out of it, and somehow it still found you.
Well, actually, wasn't too bad tonight. I had one little issue on the kink leading up to the corkscrew where I had a self-spin hitting the curb too hard. But other than that, it was a clean race for me. Just kind of minded my own business and picked them off when other people made mistakes. So it was a good race.
It was a good race. I guess I'm proven wrong. We've had so much stuff going on tonight that I just assumed, kind of based on the bad luck you've been having, that you were involved in something. But is this your season turning around finally in the GT3 cars? We got 6 more weeks coming up. We got some crazy tracks, some new tracks. Is this the Mark Kalin season finally turning around?
I'm not going to hold my breath. Anything could happen in these things, and it usually does. So hopefully it does, but I mean, one way or the other, I'm just out here to have fun, and that's all I'm going to aim to do is have as much fun as possible. Unfortunately, last night my fun ended lap 1, turn 1, but you know, those things happen.
I noticed in the background, I'm sure we're going to talk about this again tomorrow night, but there's a new Lego back there. Did you just build that, or have you moved that from the basement or something?
Yeah, I just built it about a week ago. That's the Lego Star Destroyer, about 4,700 pieces or so. So, yeah.
Taking tips from Bradley Holly, putting Legos in the background of the shot always gets you noticed. But thanks for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow night again.
Well, that one's from Brad.
Oh. Mark
But,
Kalen. Oh, we kicked him out. Mark Kalen, P10 in the AM class. We talked to him enough. We'll talk to him again tomorrow night. He'll get to say whatever he got cut off there.
Well, I always enjoy talking to the drivers. I was hoping to talk to Rob Campbell, but I think he is, with our late switch to TeamSpeak, being unable to work through some technical issues. So let's have a quick look, not at the schedule. Let's talk about Snetterton. At 8:20 is when we'll get started with the GT3 Fix Series, and of course after that, 9:20 p.m. Eastern, the Open Setup Series. It's 40-minute sprint on October the 18th will get underway. Now, we didn't know what to expect to the front at Laguna Seca, maybe, but I think the reality is if Sean Campbell comes back at Snetterton, we're in for a rather pedestrian ride once again, at least at the front.
I'm not going to predict it, though, because maybe this is the week where it finally turns around. Maybe Vincent Trepanier is a Snetterton master that we don't know about. Maybe Diego Morales will figure it out. Martin Crisp, Alessandro Puotti. There's so many drivers who are able to challenge Sean Campbell. We just need everything to finally go right, and we'll get a great race up front.
I will say as well that I think sometimes at Snetterton, less is more. Very similar to what we had today, where track limits are right on the edge. You are going to have to recognize that sometimes less is more. But unfortunately, it is time for Tuesday night GT3s to come to an end, and another doubleheader of GT3 action delivered. Chaos and carnage here on the best coasts of the USA. The WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca is known for the corkscrew, but maybe not known for all the other places where we had issues here today. Don't forget, plenty more Precision Racing League action to come here on RaceSpotTV, and plenty more esports racing to come on your VCO channel. So don't forget that tomorrow the Esports Racing League wraps up the Fall Cup as it heads to R Factor 2, while this Sunday the IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship kicks off live at 2 p.m. Eastern, only exclusively on VCO Esports. For now, though, it is time to bid you farewell. On behalf of the team at RaceSpotTV, for Joey Tebben alongside myself, Arjuna Kankipati, in the RaceSpotTV commentary booth, thank you so much for spending your Tuesday night with us, and what a round it was. Not just a repeat winner in the GT3 Fix Series for the very first time, but the streak of Sean Campbell has come to a close. We'll see you from Snetterton 7 days from today.